So I know I've covered this a couple times, but it happened again. So Hillary Clinton went on Rachel Maddow, and Glenn Greenwald says, what are the chances that Russia comes up? Hillary has been behind almost every false conspiracy theory of the last 25 years. Iraq WMDs, Iraq and Al-Qaeda alliance, Trump-Russia collusion, Putin controlling the U.S. through blackmail, Hunter laptop as Russian disinformation. She said Tulsi was also a Russian asset. She said all that. She's the biggest one. She goes, I'm going to join the one and only Rachel Maddow.
Oh, it's the next one. It's on the next slide. Joke.
And look at this. Hillary Clinton tweets it out. I'm going to join Rachel Maddow, and you couldn't reply. You couldn't. That raises an interesting question. How many people does Hillary follow?
Yeah,
only people who followed her were allowed to reply. How many people does Hillary Clinton follow? My guess is not that many, yet way more than still watch MSNBC.
I think that's a safe bet.
So she did it again. No, and can you believe that you're one of the most prominent politicians in the history of America, and when you tweet about a television appearance, you don't let people respond to it. You try to cut people's comments.
Was there a lawsuit against Trump for like blocking people?
Yes, if you're in office, you can't do it.
Oh, but you can limit their.
If you're out of office,
you can limit their replies.
So listen to how crazy this is. Listen, they just won't. So black is white, up is down, and accuse your opponent of doing what you're doing. Watch.
That the system of democracy at its heart is the idea that the people get to decide how we are governed. And if we no longer believe that our will is effectuated through the system, if bad actors tell us falsely that every election is stolen and that the only way an election is trustworthy is if they come out on top of it, then something it tells you something not just about that person or that moment.
They're saying this to a mirror. She's saying this to a mirror.
It maybe wounds us as a democracy in a way that is hard to repair. What do you think about how we get better after the wounds that have been inflicted on us through this process?
Well, so they're saying that Donald Trump has inflicted such a wound in this country because people no longer trust the integrity of our elections. They just spent the last 7 years straight saying that the election was was fraudulent and Trump was an illegitimate president, and Donald and Putin literally flipped votes to get Donald. They just spent 7 years doing that, and now they're saying doing that is a blow to democracy that we can never recover from. Listen to what she said.
As damaging as that was to our democracy, I don't think it was as damaging as watching how almost all the people in power are now senile.
Yeah,
it's like stuck in that kind of ruins my faith in it a little bit.
Here we go.
I think the truth matters. I think having
the truth matters, Kurt. The truth that she really does think the truth matters.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to always lie. You could go to jail.
Damn right it matters. Don't tell it. You don't tell it either. Keep your trap
cases
shut.
be brought in such professional manners. We'll see how they unfold. Obviously, the trials, if there are trials, are going to be critically important. But the article you mentioned that I published about the weaponization of loneliness really does, in my view, point to the larger cultural concerns, because the lack of trust, the divisiveness, the undermining of faith in ourselves, in each other, respect for our institutions, the rule of law, all of that has been deliberately inculcated within our body politic. There were trends before. I mean, we have seen how people have become more.
Could you believe the balls on these two women? And they're not even trans, as far as I know. But can you believe the balls on these women?
Yeah,
the balls to just sit there. Was it Mengele who said you accuse your opponent of what you're guilty of? Who said that? Was it Himmler?
Yeah, so
one of those Nazis said that, and so that's what they sound like, because and they dressed it in flowery language, and they're all criminals. And here I want to show you this again. A super majority of Democrats think Russia literally flipped votes in the 2016 election.
I guess, Nick, maybe he feels so offended about them rigging the election at this point, especially with the latest rules that they have. He's saying, fuck this shit. And now he's calling out Joe Biden's cognitive decline, which I've never, he's always been trying to be nice to him. And I like Joe Biden and all this other great stuff. But in this clip, it's not so much as great stuff. And he brings up his age, and he needs to prove his cognitive ability. So let's listen to Robert F.K. Jr.
The Democratic Party has been my home for my whole life. The Democratic Party has been a home to my family since we came over in 1848 during the potato famine.
Right, probably the most iconic Democratic family of all. So you're a Democrat. You're running for the Democratic nomination. One thing almost every Democrat agrees on is that Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump, even if Joe Biden isn't perfect, and that Donald Trump, most Democrats think, is a threat to democracy. Do you agree with that?
We've got to stop governing by fear, using fear as a governing tool, and we've got to stop running on fear that if everybody doesn't stay in line,
right,
that this boogeyman is going to take over our country. We can't.
This point, how he's talking about Donald Trump right here, it does two things. One, people like Sam Cedar, Majority Report, TYT, see, he's a conservative. That they're gonna use this kind of to say that. The other thing is, this is another reason why they despise him. So it's the COVID stuff, but the fact that you're not going to talk about Donald Trump in the same way that we talk about Trump is a problem, especially in a Democratic primary. Imagine him being a lot more coherent. You got Joe Biden over there babbling about Trump is crazy, babbling, and then you got RFK saying, like, we don't need this. Come on, guys. Look, you get what I'm saying? It's just a dynamic that they don't want to have, and they will never allow in this Democratic primary. But let's get back to the video and finish off and get comment.
We have to have democracy in our country. We have to have a lot of people running and a lot of people talking to each other and debating and have unscripted interactions.
Right.
I'm worried about that our country is going to be governed not by somebody who is fully has the mental fluidity and the acuity and the dexterity that is required to govern this country, and that the country instead will be governed by a bunch of faceless technocrats with lanyards.
He's saying, now he's still nicing it up for Biden, but he's saying we're going to be governed not by this guy who's clearly has cognitive decline, but by some nameless, faceless bureaucrats. That's what he's saying right here. I'm very curious to the Biden reaction. Biden can't reaction to RFK bringing this point up. But let's continue.
Will be governed by a bunch of faceless technocrats with lanyards who nobody's ever heard of, who are making decisions about whether or not to bring us to nuclear Armageddon. And we're very, very close to that right now. And I want, a president up there who can make those decisions and who's gonna understand everything, the entire landscape. And I think President Biden needs to show us all that he has that capacity. There are so many doubts. So many Americans have doubts about that. And I think 70% have questions about his mental acuity. And, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other, but what I would say is he needs to come out of the White House and answer that question. He needs to have town halls and unscripted interactions
Exactly.
And you can't.
He's not going to have any of those, Nick. He's not going to have any unscripted. They know what's wrong with this guy. They go like this. They making a calculation. Is it better to put him up there and everybody see how much of a fool he are and possibly lose credibility in this whole system because they're going to see how we were propping up this guy who shouldn't even be here? We can do that, or we can just shut it down, be called anti-democratic, but we still safeguard the idea that this guy is not running the country. Go ahead, Nick.
That's what they did last time, CJ. That's the calculation they make. They know that they're going to get hit by hiding Biden, right? But the calculation is the hit they take by having Biden hide from the public is less than the hit they would take if Biden continually make an ass of himself, right? That's literally the campaign strategy they ran last time. Then they rely on media propaganda and free media advertisement to win the election. So that's what they're trying again. That's why people who apologize for Joe Biden are so foolish, and RFK brings it up in such a great way. Because if Biden is actually prepared and he actually fit to be president, and you guys want to take on this age question, wouldn't you guys like, all right, we're going to do a weekly town hall, we're going to do more press conferences so you guys can see that Biden is more fit? The fact that they are not doing that, CJ, despite so much concern, despite all these polls, shows that they made that calculation again, despite how much criticism he's getting for his age. They like, we prefer that than the alternative. Then you guys see this guy. That's how bad it is. It's crazy, but let's continue.
That's it. We prefer this nonsense. like they're telling us, Nick, believe us, this is better. Him falling down the steps, believe us, this is better. him thinking that he was ground zero 9/11s, believe us, this is better than what we know what will happen. But let's let RFK finish out here.
No, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other. But what I would say is he needs to come out of the White House and answer that question. He needs to have town halls and unscripted interactions. And you shouldn't be able to run for president. And the only Americans you're talking to are your donors.
So, but if the final choice is Trump versus Biden, right now you're undecided?
If it's Trump, I don't have a plan B. I intend to win this election, and I'm not going to talk about
one. That's a lie.
That's
unserious. I want you guys to understand something. For one, that's a lie. Secondly, it's really fucked up, and it's a very shady media tactic that they do, where they force people who are running against Joe Biden to answer whether they're going to support him or not. Like, so they do this every single time. Not only just RFK, there's Marianne, everybody. They say, will you support Joe Biden if you're not me? That's a propaganda technique, guys. They are immediately kneecapping their campaign to their face. It's supposed to be a power move. So RFK, we know he's full of shit. We know he's lying. But what does that say about the media that they constantly putting this out there?
Jonathan Turley is watching all of this with us today. It is a stunning indictment. Jonathan, University constitutional law attorney, Fox News contributor, you know him well. And Jonathan, your thoughts as you hear what was just laid out and we all get a look at this actual indictment.
Well, it's breathtaking. This is a city that has a fair amount of corruption in it. It's not the inclination of corruption that makes Senator Menendez stand out. It's his appetite, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. After just 6 years ago, dodging a bullet with a hung jury on what many thought was a strong corruption case, the government is alleging that Menendez went right back and continued the same pattern. But what's really striking here is the payment of things like gold and cash. This is a city that has a little more finesse when it comes to influence peddling and access. This is sort of old school bribery. And what's really striking about the indictment is the level of evidence that they've gathered. They're saying that they have fingerprints of the Menendez, the DNA evidence connected to some of these gifts. that's going to be really overwhelming in a trial.
Yeah. There's a long history of corruption in New Jersey politics. Perhaps things are done a little bit differently there. Nothing has been proven in this particular case. I'm from New Jersey, so I can say that. It has gone on for a long time. This is one side of the story that has been laid out by the Southern District of New York, but it is stunning. And Jonathan, the thing that really leaps out, I think, is the allegation of providing sensitive U.S. government information to the government of Egypt. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what makes this particularly serious. He was the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and they re-upped him as chairman, even with all of his past corruption allegations. The majority still made him chairman again. And that gave him a position of considerable power, particularly with regard to foreign interests. And many of these countries have long corruption histories themselves. What's really telling about this indictment, and you're absolutely right to say this is just an accusation, it is an indictment, has to be proven. But what the government describes as finding cash stuffed in clothes and hidden in spaces, finding gold bars, having a luxury car that they claim was not paid for by the Menendez. All of that presents a real nightmare for defense counsel.
As I mentioned earlier, we recorded this interview with Cornell West shortly before his campaign announced that Peter Daou would be his new campaign manager, and that has led to a real debate on the left and many concerns being raised by supporters of the campaign. For those who don't know, Peter Daou is a former Democratic Party strategist who, among other things, played a key public role in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, during which he repeatedly made political attacks on Bernie Sanders. Peter Daou has since publicly broken with the Democratic Party and supported Bernie Sanders in 2020. It's totally understandable that activists and working people who've been repeatedly sold out have raised concerns about this decision by the West campaign. For one, not only is Daou's break with the Democratic establishment relatively recent, just in the last few months, he was the campaign manager of yet another Democratic Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's. I do think this is a mistake by the Cornell West campaign, in particular because this decision has acted to divide West's current base of supporters. The concerns that have been raised have a real basis in reality. It's not clear what Daou's politics are at this point or where he is headed, and it's important to ask the question, as many have, why put someone who was until only a short while ago with the Democratic Party at the very helm of an independent left campaign, even if their break from the Democrats is genuinely intentioned? However, in our approach to these questions, we also cannot afford to lose sight of the fact that the Cornell West campaign is offering a sorely needed left alternative to the utterly bankrupt candidacies of Biden and Trump and to the two parties of big business. In the absence of the West campaign, working people have no real options in this election, and this will lead to many of them not voting at all or voting for Trump's dangerous right-wing populism. I don't think Bernie Sanders made all the right personnel decisions either, but my main concern with Bernie Sanders was not his staffing decisions, but his capitulation to the Democratic Party in endorsing Biden, and since then, how he has provided cover to Biden and the Democrats' ongoing betrayals of working people. Right now, we need to see how things develop with the Cornell West campaign, including with Peter Daou. In my view, the main questions facing the campaign, as we raised in this interview, is whether Cornell West will consistently and clearly campaign on his working class demands, whether he will run all the way to November 2024 rather than endorse Biden, and whether he will give his campaign a mass grassroots character, including by organizing mass rallies. And I was not entirely happy with Dr. West's response to us on the question of organizing rallies. He first said that they need to quote unquote pace themselves. I think there is an urgency on this question. By this time in the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, as I said, more than 100,000 people had attended his mass rallies, and many more had heard about the program of demands Bernie was running on. The clock is ticking here, and we urgently need mass grassroots participation. The best way for us to keep West's campaign accountable to working people is for us to give it a grassroots character, to get involved, and to speak out publicly against mistakes like this one.
Welcome to a very special edition. I call every episode special of the Nick and CJ Show, Friday edition. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be back for another Friday edition of the Nick and CJ Show. We've been doing this on Monday and Fridays for the last few weeks, and it's great to see Kshama putting content out there, working straight back, have their own YouTube page to go along with their activism, something that we advocated for, and that's why we started RBN, because we saw for a very long time, not only was left media weak, like the lead left media voices were people like Kyle Kalinske and TYT before. Not only that, but there was a disconnect between you have people who either only engage in activism without educating the masses, or you have people who be on YouTube without doing activism. So it's great to see not only us engage in RBN chapters and be on YouTube, it's good to see Worker Strike Back not only doing the great work that they're doing. I was with them earlier this year, but also releasing great content, holding the left accountable. Like, people need to understand what we mean when we say horizontal movement. You know what I mean? Not top down, not we making a decision, you guys shut the fuck up and like it. And you guys shut the fuck up and accept it. No, that is not the movement I'm looking for. It never been the movement that we've been looking for at RBN. And if we really want the Dr. West campaign to succeed, we gotta sharpen. We have iron sharpen iron. We gotta hold them accountable. Right. That is not what you see out of the two-party duopoly in any meaningful way. We gotta run shit completely different. CJ, I know you want to chime in, so I'll pass to you. I got a lot to say. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what you're saying, Nick, how we're doing it is such a shock to American political discord, even on the left, because I have my critique of the Cornell picking Peter Daou, but if people listen to my critique in the same video, I said I'm for the movement. This just means I'm not voting for him in November. This doesn't change the move. I said that in the video, and people act like I didn't say that. They act like I just said dump Cornell, and nobody said that. We have Cornell West running. I have the advantage of living, or the benefit, I should say, of living in California. So I have an even better candidate that's to the left of Cornell West. So why would you even have a problem that I'm picking somebody whose leading campaign slogan is "We must end capitalism"? You get what I'm saying? So it's the shock of the critique. Understand, people act like when they had these revolutions, do you think people were just nice, or they was arguing, knocked down, dragged out fights, sometimes leading to physical fights, and then they handshake at the end? And this is what it takes for movements to actually stay rooted in the ground roots, is these sort of debates. And I like that somebody in the comments of this video that I played, and I'm gonna go back to it, and we're gonna bring you in 1 second, Nico, but I'm gonna bring this back up before we go back to this video, because somebody in the comments says, finally, I think it was Lucy, Blue Moon Lucy.
Yeah, my friend.
Finally somebody prominent says it, because I took a lot of heat. I took a lot of heat for the shit that I took a lot of heat for my stance. And the thing is, RBN is known for that. I take that with pride. We are known for going out and saying what nobody's saying months in advance and then they catch up to us. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. I'm just simply saying we're used to taking a heat at this moment, but to see her come out and say it just, to me, it crosses the T, it dots the I of the point that is made, that we must move on with the movement, as she said, but we must ask the question, what the fuck is this decision? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's the question. That doesn't eliminate the question.
The left need to take a failure is not an option approach. Like, no more, like, and I was guilty of this. Like, I'm learning from my mistakes, guys. I was on the Bernie campaign. My friend Nico, people warned us about Bernie. Nico was one of them. Like, I would see some red flags, and I'm like, all right, it's cool. Come on, let's just stay positive. Let's keep it moving. I don't like what Bernie said about Joe, my friend. I was on the Bernie campaign saying so many mistakes, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to be nice. You know what I mean? How'd that end, fam? How'd that work out?
We can bring in Nico in so he can be a part of this segment right here. Let's bring him in.
Yeah, what's poppin', Nico?
My apologies. I was on color people time. My lighting was acting crazy. It's actually low key still acting crazy, but it's all good. But yeah, man, Kshama, gospel. Like, it's very rare that she has a take that I disagree with. So, and I'm glad, like y'all said, like that she said something, because I also know that Dr. West respects her, right?
Right.
You know, we're just, talking heads behind the microphone. Although Dr. West may have a level of respect for us, the reality is there is limits, and the truth is, obviously, Kshama has more experience, not only as an independent candidate, but somebody who won, right?
Right.
So it's different.
Right.
It's different for her, right? And obviously, my age and experience might play a factor in that. But yeah, like, so okay, maybe you don't want to listen to us. Maybe you don't want to listen to Jay. Maybe you don't want to listen to Nick. Maybe Jimmy said it too rough. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe Bree was being too nice. But when Kshama Sawant is saying the same thing that we're all saying, but just in a different, maybe different tonality, but with different experiences and credentials and acumen behind her words, like, you better listen, because there are people who will stop supporting Dr. West if Kshama Sawant is like, like, right? Like, that's the one. Maybe we can't sway anybody, but her, like, she's damn near above reproach. I can't think of a single criticism that I've ever had of Kshama Sawant before.
Maybe not going harder. I can't even think of it. It's
so
nothing
nice.
to her, right? Yeah, there's no other thing I can even say.
She goes pretty hard.
And she goes hard at that.
Yeah, one thing I want to say to CJ's point earlier, and I said this when we first covered the Dr. Cornell West campaign, the very first segment, I said I'm not in here to do what I used to do, where I like pledge support for candidates a year before the election. I may or may not vote for Dr. Cornell West. I don't have PSL on the ballot, so if I vote, it's gonna be for Dr. Cornel West. But I'm done. Right. Like, what benefit do we get? And I said this before Dr. Cornel West announced his campaign, and I see no reason to change my mind on this. There's no reason to pledge support as a working class person. There are people who got jobs on campaigns. Like, there are people who hired by the RFK Jr. campaign who try and convince us to join the campaign. People hired on Dr. Cornel West campaign. But if you're an ordinary working class person trying to increase your negotiation power, there's no reason to pledge support. For a reason like we're saying, when you see even people that I like and I admire, like Dr. Cornel West, make mistakes, you're not gonna have any sway. They're like, oh, this motherfucker gonna cape for me. They're gonna apologize for me. They tell me people to vote for me. What my vision of a movement is the people, even the people who support the movement, the people on the bottom, the people building the movement on the horizontal level, we relentlessly holding people on the top accountable. You guys do that to me as well. I try my best to improve my presentation. I feel like I improved a lot as a analyst over the last year. I still got a lot of improvements.
Absolutely.
Because I hear from you guys roast my ass when I fuck up. People hold me accountable when I have bad takes. So I try to improve. So that's even the mindset I have. So I think as a leader, you should be able to listen to the people who have your best interest at heart.
Right.
And that's what we have. But I know you want to chime in, Nico. Go ahead, and Nico.
No, I just wanted to say, so once again, and I like having this conversation specifically because I remember a time where I was attacked. And at this point, when I started getting attacked, it wasn't because I had endorsed Tulsi. It was actually because I refused to endorse Bernie. And people forget that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like I had eventually endorsed Tulsi, but that was after Bernie continued to for example, whenever he was called out, hey man, shouldn't you like speak up for Tulsi after she got cheated after the debate stage like she did for you, and he basically kept saying no, like, oh, the Democrats got to figure out how to wheedle down the debate stage somehow. Like he kept pussyfooting on it, and then like he won't move in right, and I'm like, nah, like especially for me, like foreign policy is such a big deal and election integrity is such a big deal. And I'm like, well, I made my decision. But the attack started before that, and it was only because I wouldn't endorse people's favorite guy, right? And in situations like that, truth be told, it's because people are in some way, usually financially, invested in that individual, right? There are people who are hoping to make money from talking about Cornell West, to gain followers and a following from talking about Cornell West, to maybe be a part of the campaign and get their clout up by talking about.
If we were grifters, Nico, wouldn't we do that? If we were the true grifters,
right?
Wouldn't we uncritically follow the Dr. West campaign like Tim Black and others are doing?
And this was my point, right? So this is my point. What people, and I talk about this on my show, and I've said it before, but I'll say it here again. People know I had influence in Tulsi Gabbard's campaign. Not like the kind of influence like y'all be thinking about when you think about the Bernie campaign, where they really didn't have influence. It just looked from the outside like they had influence. But anybody who knows how that campaign went, it was like two people who really had some type of influence. And everybody else, unfortunately, including like Cornell West, they were just window dressing there to prop up Bernie. You know why I got influence in Tulsi's campaign? Because I did an entire like 45-minute video criticizing her stance on on Syria. Like going piece by piece, challenge respectfully, like you all do with Dr. West, like I've done with Dr. West, respectfully. And even though her and I had, and that's matter of fact, her and I had been in contact before that. So like we had already been, we were acquaintances more so than friends at that point. But like I didn't let that stop me from doing my job. And she was very clear that was what made her respect me more and actually gave me genuine influence. Because now I'm not a yes man. I'm actually somebody who's trying to contribute in a meaningful way because I want to see the best for her in the campaign. So basically what I'm saying is like,
Peter Daou was
you don't give up your power by disagreeing and being a yes man.
Yeah. All right, fellas. So what I do want to do is go back through this video and I'm going to play a full minute. I know all three of us are kind of alpha in the way that we speak, so I'm gonna try to get through this. So let's play the full minute.
I'll let play.
Yeah, then we'll critique, and then I'll do it like that in three sections. So let's go. Oops.
Cornell West shortly before his campaign announced that Peter Daou would be his new campaign manager, and that has led to a real debate on the left and many concerns being raised by supporters of the campaign. For those who don't know, Peter Daou is a former Democratic Party strategist who, among other things, played a key public role in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, during which he repeatedly made.
I'm going to pause here so I can read the tweets just for those that might be listening. So Kshama in her video is providing evidence of Peter Daou, what she's saying in the video. And the tweet says, I'll read the original tweet and then the quote tweet. The original one says, gut check, there's no split in the Democratic Party. There's Bernie Sanders and his rage-filled, self-righteous, diehard attacking Democrats. He quote tweets that saying, warning to Democratic leaders, until you confront the toxic, destructive influence on the party that is Bernie Sanders, you will keep losing. That's one of the tweets she shows. So I'll get back to the video now.
Made political attacks on Bernie Sanders.
One more. I'll be clear. Bernie Sanders has absolutely no business in determining the course of the Democratic Party after the harm he did to us.
Peter Daou has since publicly broken with the Democratic Party and supported Bernie Sanders in 2020. It's totally understandable that activists and working people who've been repeatedly sold out have raised concerns about this decision by the West campaign. For one, not only is Daou's break with the Democratic establishment relatively recent, just in the last few months, he was the campaign manager of yet another Democratic Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's.
So for me, Nico and Nick, this is one of the key points that she makes that I think, Nick, you were one of the first people that I heard on stream make this point explicitly, not just generically. Like what is the explanation for that? I'm just rhetorically saying, I'm not saying for us as a discussion question, but this point that she makes here is critical, because how do you explain that? You can't say then he's had this this wake up call of the Democratic Party when just a few months ago he was with them. Now, if he never did that, he would have a lot better stance on that particular argument, but he chose to go with Marianne Williamson. Either third parties was the answer. So this is what Peter Dow's saying, that in 3 months he saw something in 3 months that make him go, no more Democratic Party. Now I'm going full stop.
So his explanation
I don't believe it. Go ahead.
Did you hear his explanation on Savvy Show? Basically, he said that it was like he had always hoped for Marianne Williamson to make a clean break, and he had encouraged her and actually RFK Jr. to gather up resources and by using the foundation of the Democratic Party, and then take them and do a dirty break with them and go third party. He said that was always his intention, but that's very difficult to believe, because for Marianne Williamson, for example, it would have made more sense to start off third party than to go into the Dems, where she wasn't that popular to begin with. So like once, and he said though that she made it clear that she was never going to separate. And then he said that because of that and the issues with whatever he had going on in his life, that was when he decided it was a time to separate from the campaign. So my thing is like, that's just there's a lot of red flags in that whole scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have levels of sort of like degrees of critique of Peter. I'm probably on the high end, you're probably in the middle, and Nick is on he doesn't have the same animosity towards him, so he's not as rough. But
my critique is a failure is not an option policy, like I mentioned earlier. With the argument that Kshama was making, does Peter Daou alienate supporters? Yes or no? The answer is yes, whether you like it or not. If the answer is yes, that means he shouldn't be campaign manager. Period.
I can even say like it's not yes or no. It's does he alienate enough where it's a problem? Where now he has become the news, right? Because like Jeff Weaver alienated some Bernie supporters. People don't know that because it wasn't a big enough problem for it to make the news, right?
Yeah.
But like you probably didn't know that because you weren't part of the 2016 campaign, and most people who knew that were intricately involved. But this isn't.
I didn't know that much about Jeff Weaver at that time. Yeah, I didn't know that much.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. But when this man becomes the news to the point where he has to go on a whole goddamn tour to try to
he does.
It's a distraction. It's an unnecessary distraction. I'm all about failure. Is not an option. Winning at all costs. And another question. Once again, this is brutal. They don't like this in civility politics, but I don't know why people believe that Peter Daou can give us a W, considering his track record of having L's. Like he was on Hillary Clinton campaign,
on Democratic Party campaigns where he was shooing to win. Yeah,
like. Are we picking a winner or someone who got a track record of losing? It seems like we're picking someone who got a track record of losing. So one thing that's mean to say, I guess, it's not civil.
Hey, I appreciate that. Man. I lost in 2016. Okay, when I was a Bernie, I lost.
Because now that's separate. Now this is separate from my personal belief. Now the reason why I don't have the personal animosity to Peter Daou a lot of people have because I joined Twitter post Revelation. I didn't start posting on Twitter until like late 2019. That's around time I met you, Nico. It was I missed that entire phase of Peter Daou, so I never saw it. So there's a bias. I mean, never seen Peter at his worst. And there also the belief I have as a founder attended man and believer in abolition and rehabilitation. I believe that people can change and grow. But I also have that pin with the belief that just because someone going through this rehabilitation process, they shouldn't be in charge of a movement that is so important. So the Dr. Cornell West candidacy, most people will admit, is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a third party. Well, I say once-in-a-generational, I say that. Opportunity for third party. So this one opportunity we have, you guys rolling dice on Peter Daou?
You know what?
So if Peter Daou having this redemption arc, yeah, he can work for a Congress campaign office. You risking it all for him? What is his track record of giving wins? None? Okay, so I guess we're doing it as a job.
Yeah, and you know what, bro? You know how much we can look the other way if that motherfucker had a track record of just W's on W. You know, it's like, you know what? maybe that motherfucker know what he doing and it's worth the risk. You know, like maybe if he really is reformed and enough people can vouch for him and he has a track record of W, but like his sole purpose, remember, at one point, his sole purpose was to do what? Smear Bernie Sanders and his supporters, and then, of course, smear Jill Stein and her supporters. And yet, in that period, they had become more popular and broken more fundraising records to the point where people literally, like, there were jobs that were created because you were talking about Bernie Sanders. So, like, you weren't even good at that. Like if I'm being honest, right?
Nico,
you weren't even good at that.
And Nico, the reason why I say that, because the excuse come from the Dr. Cornell West camp, is that, there's not a lot of experienced campaign managers. CJ, you heard this. There's not a lot of experienced campaign managers, so we have no choice but to hire Pierre Daou. Sir, ma'am, what's the evidence that Pierre Daou is experienced winning campaign manager? Is that mean to say? Yes, it is. But I'm not here for civility politics. I'm here with the failure is not an option mentality. I like Peter. We follow each other on Twitter. We like each other tweets quite a few times.
We follow each other. We follow each other too.
But this is real. Like politics, this is not a fucking movie podcast. You know what I mean? We're not talking about building a fucking middle-aged soccer team. You know what I mean? This is real life shit.
When it flips to that, when it comes to strategy, bro, like I'm like Nick, probably Jay the same. Like, bro, first of all, I don't fucking like losing. I do not like losing at all. I don't like losing. And when it comes to when people know me, I don't know, maybe in the past, why I've caught so much flack, because they're used to seeing, okay, journalists. But when I go into, like, I've worked in politics, bro. When I go into strategy mode, I don't have time to mince words and to coddle your feelings. And like, now I'll be like, look, respectfully, this is wrong. This is right. This is why. This is the history proving that this will work and this won't work. Yes. You can accept that, or take the L. But when you take it, don't be running around talking about, I don't understand how this happened. Like, that's how and then I also tell people who are watching on the outside, like, now I told you, like, for example, election integrity on both sides, Trump and Bernie. I was like, y'all, we still have not resolved this election integrity issue, because people would ask me, and how much of a chance do you think Tulsi had? I said, probably the exact same amount of chances as Bernie. They're like, what? How? I said, did we resolve any of those issues within the Democratic Party before? Like that happened before Nick had joined? And they're like, well, no, but this time we have more support. I said, see, that's you're confusing more support with functionality. Like, does the Democratic Party function any differently than it did in 2016? The answer is no. Has Bernie substantively addressed that, or even made a big deal about it so that the Democrats feel pressured to address that? No.
Exactly.
So the chances are the same. I don't care how much money he's raised. And they were looking at me like I'm crazy. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll say, I'll pass to you, and I'll pass right to you, CJ. Like Nico said, I don't like losing. The Bernie campaign changed me. Shit fucking, I told you guys, I snapped at the Super Tuesday. I seen all those mistakes that Nico laid out. Like, I was on their campaign, I was working, I seen all these mistakes you guys making. But I was like, okay, let's push forward. I don't want to be uncivil. I don't want to cause a ruckus. You know what I mean? I think that these people, they know what they're doing. Then I followed the direction and we lost. I'm like, never again. I trusted you motherfuckers. I thought you guys knew what you guys was doing, and you lost. So I'm not doing this thing where I just believe you're right for no reason. No, you got to explain to me step by step why is Pierre Daou high is a good decision. Well, I think we don't got his track record. What track record, ma'am or sir? Anyway,
why certain advice is being ignored, because that happened. You know, that happened a lot in Bernie's campaign.
This is a mistake by the Cornell West campaign, in particular, because this.
Let me rewind that part back right here.
Party campaign, Marianne Williamson's. I do think this is a mistake by the Cornell West campaign, in particular because this decision has acted to divide West's current base of supporters. The concerns that have been raised have a real basis in reality. It's not clear what Daou's politics are at this point or where he is headed, and it's important to ask the question, as many have, why put someone who was until only a short while ago with the Democratic Party at the very helm of an independent left campaign, even if their break from the Democrats is genuinely intentioned? However, in our approach to these questions, we also cannot afford to lose sight of the fact that the Cornell West campaign is offering a sorely needed left alternative to the utterly bankrupt candidacies of Biden and Trump, and to the two parties of big business. In the absence of the West campaign, working people have no real options in this election, and this will lead to many of them not voting at all or voting for Trump's dangerous right-wing populism. I don't
That's
think
true.
Bernie Sanders made all the right personnel decisions either, but my main concern with Bernie Sanders was not his staffing decisions, but his capitulation to the Democratic Party in endorsing Biden, and since then, how he has provided cover to Biden and the Democrats' ongoing betrayals of working people. Right now, we need to see how things develop with the Cornell West campaign, including with Peter Daou. In my view, the main questions facing the campaign, as we raised in this interview, is whether Cornell West will consistently and
So before she gets to this last part, because I do want to discuss that as a separate question, because she gets into a different strategy question, but what she says here, she says it perfectly. She says it in a way that everybody kind of likes, or the vast majority of people like Kshama Sawant. So
Who don't like her?
to me, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's
How
some
about
some
them?
there's
Where
some
they at?
haters, there's
Give
some
me that
Democratic, there's some
Give me that handle.
cowboy,
Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you?
cowbell leftists that are like that. The Democrat
guys
blue
the-
and blue, that type of person. Go ahead. Nick.
Oh,
I will,
liberal.
say, I will
Okay.
say this because
Yeah.
they're not allowed to say. I talk to many people at work at Strike Back. I know the people they reached out to. I know the responses they get. They're too civil to ever say it. But all these boutique leftists that claim they support labor rights, they rejected Kshama. I let her say name, but she said it before. I'm not gonna get in trouble, but she reached out to all the big names. So I was at work at Strike Back, guys. I gave a speech at the opening event, right? You guys think I was the only one they reached out to? You think I was the biggest name they could get? No, they reached out to a ton of people. And if you guys got questions, Kshama will probably tell you. I'll let her speak from there. So to answer your question, Nico, who don't like Kshama? A lot of these people who are part of the Bernie industrial complex can't stand her. But they can't publicly say that. They can't publicly say it though. She blacklisted on multiple shows. One, I think she called this out, so I hope Kshama don't get mad at me. But she was booked to be on Nina's show, and they fucking
TYT probably killed that because they were the ones
they
right?
scrapped it last second. She's like, what the fuck? Anyway, there are many shows like that too. I'll pass back to you.
And they didn't reschedule it. That's what's telling. They didn't reschedule it, but hopefully we can say that. You said it before. I don't know if you can say it, but I know I've heard you say it in the stream before. But let's finish up.
Try to talk about it because
Kshama,
no, not at all.
Hey, real quick before we continue, Kshama, why don't you follow a brother, bro? Like I've been out like here, one of your biggest cheerleaders, and I'm over here thinking like this whole time we follow each other because I never see her tweets until y'all retweeted it, and I'm realizing she don't even follow me. That's crazy. I'm a little hurt by that.
She did the same thing. She's just not. That's how
I know she don't be into
she's
it
just
like
not. She's not into. Yeah, so she'll be responding and not even knowing it. But let's finish up with this last less than a minute right here of the clip, and then we can move on.
and clearly campaign on his working class demands, whether he will run all the way to November 2024 rather than endorse Biden, and whether he will give his campaign a mass grassroots character, including by organizing mass rallies. And I was not entirely happy with Dr. West's response to us on the question of organizing rallies. He first said that they need to quote unquote pace themselves. I think there is an urgency on this question. By this time in the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, as I said, more than 100,000 people had attended his mass rallies, and many more had heard about the program of demands Bernie was running on. The clock is ticking here, and we urgently need mass grassroots participation. The best way for us to keep...
So, and I can cut it here because it's just kind of like just giving advice, but I watched the whole video and we'll cover it in another segment. Nick, maybe Monday we'll cover the actual segment she interviews with Cornell West, and because I have it, I have the, we can do it up to that. She talks about, but let me make this one point. She talks about because she asked him a question, and this is a critique, like Cornell West needs to be able to cultivate the ability of answering questions more directly and understanding it's not the same sort of speaking style. You're lecturing. You're not lecturing in an interview. So in the interview, for example, what she was referring to as his answer behind organizing, like it was a roundabout, and then he came back to the answer and he kind of answered. It was like, because Kshama's about what are we doing? Like, show me, let's plan. What is the
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah.
What date is the shit happening? Give me the date. What's the time? Like, that's what she's about. And that's just not his response. So the response was a little like, because he made it seem like, oh, we ain't gonna be really doing these big old rallies till it's real close to the election. She was like, what?
Can't do that.
She didn't say that. She didn't say that, but I know
You could tell.
you can tell, like, it was like a what are you talking about when it's closer to the election? Like, we need to do this. We need to do this now. So it feels
No,
like
like
to
we
me,
should. That should have started
it
last.
feels like to
2
me,
months ago.
Kshama. It feels like Shama's gonna be doing that critique sort of level that I do, but she's gonna be inside the campaign. Like, no, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, she's gonna be asking those questions. So I'm so happy she's there. Go ahead, Nico or Nick, whoever wanted to chime in.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so that should have started probably 2 months ago, like the rallies. He's been doing this podcasting, and that's good. You should be doing that type of stuff. You should be doing those interviews. You should be going on mainstream media and trying to make your case, or better yet, showing that you can defend your case, right? Making your case is one thing, but you also need to be able to show that you can take the sticks and stones that they're going to throw at you because you're a Green Party candidate. But those rallies should have started 3 months ago, at least planning. But at this point, so like she said in 2015, so whenever the Bernie campaign recruited me, and it was through a student who had just graduated. So they had recruited a student who had literally just graduated from college and was like, yo, come up, find the best, 7, 8 students in the country that you believe can help organize a student movement. And this was during the summertime, bro. This was our months ago. So he had already, that student movement didn't get rolling on accident. By the time we were in class, we hadn't even started class yet. I had 300 people signed up for the Bernie organization at University of North Carolina before we ever stepped foot in class. Yeah. In less than 3 weeks of that, I was organizing the event that he threw in Greensboro, where he had already began to fill up auditoriums and gymnasiums and stadiums and all that stuff. So, and that was, nobody knew who Bernie was at this point. Nobody. And Dr. West, although people know who he is, you're a third party candidate. So you have to get on the ball. I'm hoping that hiring a manager, even though it is Peter Daou, I'm hoping that hiring the campaign manager and that's a sign.
They need people. So Nico, we 3 of us know more in the background. They need people. We got sources. They need people, and they don't have people. The problem is, Nico and Nick, they're trying to operate this campaign like a regular campaign and not a movement, and that's where the problem. Kshama is telling you need to be on this like a movement. That's how Bernie did his, is like a movement. You're not doing that. What's going on? Oh, we don't have people. That's because you keep trying to get people in. You keep trying to get people already in the stat. We don't need that. We need movement people. Yeah, Shama's right here. She's right here. Why don't you get her? You need help. RBN is right here. What is the problem? Yeah, you need help. Reach out. Like, this is what I'm saying. We're talking because you're skipping over the movement people to trying to find establishment people, the ones with the credentials like a Peter Daou. You don't need that. You need a movement organizer. Absolutely. That's what you need, not this. Go ahead, guys.
I can say this now because it's already dead and gone. But so do you know the 2 people that Nina specifically, because she was the president of Bernie's campaign, went after for press secretary in 2020, myself and Bree. Myself and Bree had never been press secretaries before. She had just started she had really just become a journalist and an activist and a podcaster. But she's like, we need movement people and people who are outside of DC, because people who know what's going on, and their experiences are valuable, but we don't want someone who's going to come and do the same thing and carry the same mindset as somebody who has been involved in the establishment for their entire career. And look how well Bree did. Look at what she did for that Bernie campaign when she was forced to debate those policies, have those conversations. I could say, to be honest, if you compare that to Peter in his little tour, it's night and day. So you got to start finding movement organizers, people. I'm not saying just go find some activists with some rah-rah shit and that's it. Yeah, not like but real ones. There are people out there. And I know that y'all have the connections and the ability to reach out to. Maybe it isn't one of us, but you know that we know somebody. You know, like, we know somebody. So yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because I do agree with her that it's a unique opportunity, not just because it's Cornell West, but it's because of the time that we're in. People are they're fed up. They're done. They're done with the two-party system. They're literally, Democrats are saying, yeah, we might vote for Biden, but we really don't want this. We don't want him to run. Like, that is where we're at right now. They're looking for an alternative, and they also don't want it to be Trump. So be the alternative. They're not just going to walk up and give you money and just show up to vote for you, because they'll rather just stay home than that. Go give them something to vote for. And I also agree with Kshama Sawant that he does have to remember that he's not lecturing. Like, he sounds like he's having a cold brew with you. And this isn't a bad thing necessarily when you're doing some type of podcast formats, but he sounds like he's chilling at the pub with you and y'all having a cold beer together, and he trying to preach to you the good gospel of socialism and radical change. And that's a great, if he was having a conversation with me and I wasn't convinced, by the time I listened to him, I probably would be convinced at a pub or at a bar drinking some beer, right? But that's not what you're doing. It needs to be succinct. What's his phrase? We knew to feel the burn. We knew the $15 minimum wage. We knew all that stuff about Bernie. Like, it was like clockwork, bro. It was $27. I can't. Whenever I see the number 27, I still think of the Bernie Sanders campaign years later. We need that type of marketing and strategy from the West campaign if you're going to build that movement, and we just haven't seen it yet.
And that's like on Ukraine, like, you know how Bernie has Medicare for all, fight for 15. You got, direct messaging, end student loan debt, cancel medical debt. On Ukraine, Dr. West, we need that message immediately. Peace in Ukraine, abolish NATO. Not this, oh yeah, I think Putin is a tyrant. Yeah, like none of that. None of that need to be absolutely correct. I do agree with that. I want to show this other clip for Kshama Show. And then I have a Ukraine statement I want to get into.
Yeah,
there's a big fight over
we got a lot of
Ukraine funding. There's a lot to cover on that. But I love that Kshama is making this call out as well, because I called out the Sunrise Movement and a lot of climate groups. There are a lot of people who are roasting their ass, but I was out there in front. I released a hotspot video roasting their ass, and people were like, yeah, what's going on with this? Then they start getting roasted because I'm like, tired of frauds who are allowing scabs and warmongers in our spaces. And I remember AUW, to their credit, they had Trump and they had some Republicans that were trying to grift off of their labor event. And they're like, no, we don't fuck with y'all, Trump. We don't fuck with y'all. Don't try to make this pro-Republican. You're not invited here. It's not about you. And they said the same thing to Biden as well. Biden was supposed to attend a UAW event, and they were like, nah, we good. We don't want this to be an appearance of a campaign event. And that's what you're supposed to do, right? Meanwhile, you got Sunrise Movement fucking chilling with fucking warmongers. We got Biden endorsement. We got Jamal Bowman. We got war criminals at their event.
Hey, man, they got to keep the lights on, bro. They need that fundraising, dog. They got to keep the lights on.
So then everyone, you know how the left is with their toxic positivity and civility politics. They had this bullshit march in New York that was essentially a DNC fucking campaign event because they all these Democrats here. Then you have people like, oh, we had climate activism. Yeah, AOC speaking at Real Congress. I'm like, you guys have AOC speaking at your event, and you guys not calling her out for supporting the Nord Stream pipeline bomber, the Sunrise Movement, the
Nick ain't never gonna let her forget. He ain't never gonna forget about that.
Never. I'm never gonna let the Sunrise Movement forget that it's literally late September in 2023, and they haven't tweeted about the Nord Stream pipeline bombing one time. Only the biggest environmental disaster ever, the largest methane leak ever. And
Fukushima was kind of an accident. This is like intentional.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
This is like, that shit is, you're absolutely right. And by the way, the Sunrise Movement is funny because y'all saw they had this big rally, and all this, it was like the Women's March. And I remember at the time I went to the Women's March in New York. I was living in New York at the time, and I'm like, the cops are being all friendly and stuff, and everybody's super nice. And my friend who's with me, she's like, "What, Nico? What's wrong?" And I'm sometimes in political situations that I'm peeping game. My body language you could tell. And she was like, "Nico, what's wrong?" I was like, something's off about this. She's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Why are those cops being so friendly?" And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, why are the cops being nice to protesters? There's just 100,000 people here. They should be kicking our ass. If this was about protesting the establishment and protesting for rights, and if this was actually disrupting the status quo, and like if this is doing what they're claiming that it's meant to do, they would. And then I go ask the cop, I'm talking to him, and he tells me, oh yeah, we were paid by the city an extra, time and a half to be here to help the march. And I'm like, that's not how that shit's supposed to work. And of course, you realize like the whole women's march thing was a scam, of course, because obviously there hasn't been another women's march since the Biden administration took over, right? Like if women's rights all of a sudden just whoop, got all the rights we needed, everything's cool. No need to protest again, because it was always a Democratic Party fundraiser. And with the Sunrise Movement, I said the same thing with this recent. And what do? They immediately promote some bullshit. Look at what Joe Biden's about to do. They have that march. Then they talk about that bullshit department that Joe Biden allegedly plans on creating. And who do you think got the fundraise off of that? Both. It's quid pro quo. It was not a coincidence.
So you have an event that essentially is a DNC campaign event. And like Nico said, if you have politicians that show up to your event and give a campaign speech, you're no threat to anybody. You're just zero threat if you had these people showing up to your event, hot dogging and grandstanding. This is Jamal Bowman.
To give almost $1 trillion a year to our military-industrial complex.
You do. I'm glad he said we.
Are you guys gonna allow him to get away with this lie in front of you guys? Because of civility? Because you don't want to be mean? Because this is
he
where
wasn't lying, Nick. He did say we. He said we. He was talking about him. He said we.
Fair enough. Why are we allowing these people to use these events for clout? Why are we allowing these traitors in our leftist spaces? What would happen if you had Republicans openly like with RBN? They would be like, oh my God, look at Red Brown Alliance, RBN working with Republicans. Meanwhile, you guys got warmongers in your spaces. And it's something I've been calling out. Now, that was a long preface because Kshama Sawant is calling out the same thing. Where you have Khanna, the scab that is on the picket lines. So let's listen to this video.
And I heard that you had a chance to talk to Congressmember Khanna. Just for our viewers, Khanna is a rising star in the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He, like, unfortunately, virtually all the progressives, actually, I should say, voted to break the railroad workers' strike, including the chair of the Progressive Caucus, Pamela Jayapal. So what did Khanna have to say?
Yeah, I mean,
so what Kshama said, you had Khanna who broke the railroad strike, but he had an UAW event. So the second that the squad voted to do that, the same way that the squad voted to approve weapons to Nazis in Ukraine, that's the moment where they are disinvited at our events. You guys understand that they need us more than we need them, right? People say, well, we need the politicians there to get us press. No, you don't. They need to be there to get good press. You guys understand the exact opposite of what you guys say? When you guys let these people in, then they say, oh, I was at the picket line. I'm pro-worker, even though their record said the exact opposite. Why are you guys allowing this? It did not help you. I will strongly make the argument. If anything, it delegitimized your movement. AOC is as unpopular as Kamala Harris. But you think it's a good look?
True now?
Yeah, I covered that. Like, she's, despite what AOC stands believe, her approval rating is worse than Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. Because remember, think about it, Nico. She lost the real left, like people like us, like the people who will support her. Neoliberals already hate her, and conservatives hate her too. So who are you trying to win over, AOC? She's just doing the bidding of Mama Bear. So that's
not the Instagram viewers that she be live streaming to all the time when she be trying to vent about her day. Like, what the fuck?
So it works for Mama Bear and blue check liberal establishment people on Twitter. They love her now, but the class warrior neoliberals will never like her. Conservatives won't like her, and she lost us. That's why she's so politically fucking
bad strategy.
It's so ridiculous to do what she did. Anyway, but I digress. Let me finish the clip because this is essentially Kshama calling this out, and then we move on. It's not a long segment. I'll play the video and we can move on.
I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bold for someone who voted to break a railroad strike to come out here to a picket line. A picket line that would have been much stronger.
See, thank God Kshama is in the media game, CJ.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
CJ, they just like us. They like, we don't give a fuck if we make you mad. They're calling out Khanna to their face,
I don't know.
doing a statement about it. I love to see it, but I'll let it continue.
If rail workers had gone out on strike, if they had won a much stronger contract, if they had won these demands for 14 paid sick days or even more, fighting for the safety that they needed to prevent disasters like in East Palestine, which happened here in the state of Ohio, where Toledo workers are on strike right now. I think it is pretty rich for him to come out here to this picket line after taking such an anti-union position. Yep. Of course, politicians are coming out of the woodwork to present as if they support auto workers. The question, though, that workers here are asking, it's great that politicians are coming out. It's great that they're, saying these kind of vague statements. But what we really need is for them to stand firmly with us. Otherwise, none of it really matters.
Biden has not even come close to doing enough. If he really backs us, he needs to stop putting out these blank statements of just saying he backs us. He needs to in verbatim repeat what we need. He needs to say word for word. If we're asking for a 40% raise, he needs to come out and say give them a 40% raise. Because you come out and just say we're going to get record profits, giving us a 50-cent raise is record profit because we're not making that now.
And by the way, Biden is acting as a scab on UAW as we speak. As Biden was disinvited to an event at UAW, the Biden team, their goal is to play peacemaker. So if your goal is to play peacemaker, instead of getting the workers their demands, you're being a scab because you're trying to end the labor conflict without a proper resolution.
In other words,
and that's
you're
why
not pro-union. You keep claiming to be a pro-union president. You peacemaker my ass. If you are a pro-union president, then you are pro-union. There is what the union is demanding, and there is the opposite of that. It is not a complicated. It's not a complicated computation. It's you're pro-union or you're not. This is in just like that the kids said, like it's campaign season. Of course, they're showing up out of the woodwork now. Everybody wants to talk about it now. Everybody wants to put their face. They want to put their face out there, but they don't want to put their signature on the paper. They don't want to put, you know what I'm saying? They don't want to put the rubber to the road. They don't want to start calling out the names of the politicians in the states who are not speaking up for these auto workers and these union workers. They don't want to do that. Why? Because it's probably some of their friends. Because they don't actually want. They don't want the reverberating impact of, damn, this happens all over the country and I got to actually stand by my words and half of these corporations are funding my campaign.
So I'm going to read some super chats, CJ, and then I'm going to get to the Ukraine story. That's my last statement for today. I got the Ukraine, then I'll pass it to you. I have a hard exit around 2 hours, but I think we got time for another segment for you, CJ. So let me get to some super chats and we can continue. Thanks for the $10, Matt. Hello, Nick, CJ, Nico. I love this new power trio here. I really appreciate everything you're doing to inform people. Thank you for being so brave and standing up and speaking out. I don't know any other way. I don't know any other way. I'm sure Nico and CJ could agree. There are people that they don't want to speak on certain issues. They bake the calculations. There's no reason I would be in this for that. Like if I was making like calculations on what I say based on how I want to grow based on what money I want to make, I would still be in car sales. Like if that's what I was doing, if I'm calculating what I would say based on what money, that I'll do my old job. I would be
monetized on YouTube, apparently.
Neither no other reason to be in this doing this. But anyway, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for $2, Black Freud. I'm not sure Dr. West wants the job.
I get the same feeling sometimes because we all have to. Maybe I wouldn't describe it that way, but I do sometimes when I'm watching him, I get the feeling like, oh yeah, he was talking to running. This wasn't a guy that just initiated it on his own. Because sometimes it feels like, damn, these people like, and I'm doing this as a favor, and it's like, come on, Cornell, like his unwillingness to recognize some of the critiques that he's gotten and just kind of just blowing him off or either not acknowledging them. So to that point is I get that as what this the super chat is saying.
Yeah, we got another one. We got another one after this, and we move on. Perhaps the question for Wes that I sent you might be helpful. to clarify West's intentions and methods. I don't remember that question on top of my head. I think you sent me us the email, but I don't remember on top of my head. But thank you for the super chat. Thank you for $10. Sarah, is honored sanctioned narrative goes to show that climate change is a next control fear tactic coming. Thank you for the $10. Sarah, that's why I say, and that's why as someone who care about climate and preserving our earth, any climate activism without class struggle is a waste of time. Like top 1% is responsible for 70%. Top 100 companies. The top 100 companies are responsible for 1% of the emissions. The military-industrial complex is the largest polluter. We look at private jets. Like people like Taylor Swift alone emits more carbon dioxide than the entire country where a private jet flight.
Yeah.
So
And I want to also
only interested. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying I want to add to that like there's like this focus on carbon emissions too. Like there's almost never enough focus on the environment because like I don't know what happened at the summit, but at that climate change rally and whatever. But I didn't hear a single word about what. Like, do they know that there was a whole nother leak in Fukushima? Like, do they know about that? Like, what just happened?
And Biden enabled that. Biden and the Japanese government enabled.
You get what
and
there was no coverage of it. Like, what's the point of talking about climate change if our house ain't clean? We can't live. It ain't gonna matter.
Right.
Did
they talk about the fact? Sorry, Nico, but that's such a great point. Did they talk about the fact that military were caught dumping toxic materials in the Black community? I covered this last year, and there was a story about the Navy dumped a ton of toxic material in indigenous Hawaiian waters. None of this stuff is even mentioned by the climate movement. That's why they lost me. As someone who deeply care about preserving the planet, almost into a spiritual and biblical nature, as someone who I'm not even religious, but almost spiritual in the way that I care about preserving the earth. I can't even explain it. It's in my nature. It separates us from caring about something. You know what I mean? But go ahead, Nick. I know you want to chime in.
I was just gonna say like same. I mean, spiritually, yeah, but also like literally, when I was growing up, I lived in Fayetteville, and like the water that I had to shower with was basically poisoning my skin, and I already had psoriasis, so it was exacerbated with me. And we come to find out literally maybe after I was in the military. So it started from middle school all the way until I went back to Fort Bragg. So I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina again. And once I moved, my skin started getting better. And I then later found out that Duke Energy had basically been poisoning the water. It was a whole thing. And Duke Energy provided basically a lot of the water and a lot of they were responsible for a lot of the infrastructure of the water around the whole entire state. So like, it has impacts on people. For me, that's one of the reasons I'm like, if we're going to talk about the environment, then let's talk about it. But this whole like loose language of carbon emissions, when half of them can't even explain why it's important to talk about carbon emissions, they just say that because it's a buzzword that gets people riled up. And I'm like, I want to know how to stop the problems from happening on a real level. Like when you're fracking, I know like that gas leaks into the water and it becomes poisonous, like things like that. Are you doing anything to fight that? Or are you uplifting people who are literally advocating, or at least allowing tacitly, like the Democrats, like AOC and Bowman, to contribute to it? Like, and they are contributing, and they are uplifting people who contribute to the problem, not alleviate it.
Yeah, and I want people to understand, because I agree with you, Sarah, 100%. That it's being used as a control tactic and a way for people to make money with green capitalism, right? And we acknowledge that. I don't want, and I'm not accusing you of this. I don't want people to fall for the trap of, because the neoliberals approach this in the wrong way and they're using it as a control mechanism, which we should 100% resist. I want people, don't substitute that for the actual will to fight for a clean environment, because it's extremely important. But we must resist the modern climate change movement, because it's actual liberal bullshit. Let's invest in renewable energies. Oh, we're not saying that just so I make a Democrat donors are investing in renewable energy. We're not saying that because we don't want to avoid the military-industrial complex and the fact that and the environmental disasters that we're complicit with. Their solutions are not in our interest, and they're actually not even addressing the problem. And I think those two things can exist at once. But let's move on for a time. Thank you for the super chats. I'm gonna get into Ukraine.
Yeah, let's get to Ukraine. A lot to do with Ukraine.
Yeah, we got a lot of coverage. I'm sure you probably have some receipts as well. I'm gonna start here.
I think we do.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, but I'm gonna start here because we're gonna work our way around this. CJ, feel free if you want to add anything in as well. Zelenskyy that visited the United States, He's losing his clout, fam, because last year you had Zelenskyy. He had a packed house in Congress. Everyone cheering for him on both sides of the party. Nancy Pelosi saying it's an honor to have the great Zelenskyy here. AOC cheering in the background, right? He went from that congressional address to having a backdoor meeting with a few select senators. So he's losing clout, fam. And polls are showing that people are turning against this. Republicans are calling it out. But during this meeting, I want you guys to know the Biden administration approved of a $325 million arm package, which includes more cluster bombs. So more cluster bombs to save the democracy of Zelenskyy. You know, the democracy with all the opposition parties are banned. Opposition media is banned.
Yeah,
Collective bargaining is banned.
All leftist parties are banned. Democracy.
I want to move through this here because I'm going to show you guys the reaction that some senators had after the closed door meeting. And CJ, what did I tell you guys months ago? If you guys think this Ukraine debate was interesting months ago, wait until the election fires up, fam. Wait until this giant elephant in the room that everyone been ignoring for a long time. The fact that there's a significant minority. It is a minority because many neocons and Republicans are all for the Ukraine war funding. But it's a significant minority enough to really start blocking shit. To really start a political debate. Like if you had a mainstream Republican presidential candidate that was for Ukraine, then you might be able to ignore the issue. But guess what Trump is doing? Trump is watching Tucker Carlson. Yes. Trump is following Matt Gaetz. And he's the leading presidential candidate
Trump gonna go to them trending topics. He's gonna be like, y'all want what? Y'all don't like Ukraine? Man, I don't like that shit either. That's exactly what
Yes. And if anything, we all know Trump is not intellectual. If anything, this nigga Trump is like, fuck Ukraine because Biden funded them more. Because we know he funded Ukraine as well. So Trump is doing this out of spite, man. Like, but I'm all for it. I don't care why he's doing it.
He said, y'all ain't show up to my impeachment. I'm over here trying to help y'all motherfuckers out. And y'all ain't show up to help me out in the impeachment ceremony. Fuck Zelenskyy. Because people don't know about that. That whole situation really popped off. The same time Biden entered the race was actually the same time in around March where Trump had worked with Zelenskyy to expose the entire Obama administration and their dealings with Ukraine. So Trump ended up catching the fire because of that shit. And Zelenskyy didn't even come to like, he said that Trump wasn't guilty. Maybe he didn't believe me about shit, but he didn't even come like to testify because he was trying to, probably save his own ass. But knowing Trump, he remembered that shit. He remember that shit. He vindictive. That's a vindictive motherfucker. Yeah.
Yep. So this is the reaction from the senators after their closed door meeting with Zelenskyy. You guys gonna see the neocon Republicans once again, the majority who support the Ukraine war, their reactions versus the reactions of the neoliberals, and then we will respond because there's gonna be a lot of bullshit here. There's also a clip I was debating on showing, but I may show you guys where Amy Klobuchar is on to Caitlin Collins, what the fuck her name? Caitlin Collins from CNN about Ukraine, and it's as cringe as you could possibly imagine. So I'm gonna show you guys some establishment perspectives, and then you have the Rand Pauls and JD Vance, who just took a flamethrower to discourse, Nico, and they lighting this motherfucker on fire. So let's get to the video. We got a lot to say to it.
But the Russians are moving all their in-depth defense up front to slow them down, thinking they'll wear us out. The only way Putin wins this is for us to blink. He is going to lose. He is going to lose.
Yeah, I'm glad he caught up on that, Nico. He's saying us. But I was told that we are conspiracy theorists, Nico, and we say that we are fighting a proxy war in Ukraine, though. They say, oh, we're not fighting a proxy war. Meanwhile, he like us, and we do this against.
Yeah, he made sure to let you know. He said us the first time. I'm like, oh, did he just slip up? No. He said it. He meant it. Mm-hmm.
They say it all the time. Yeah, you still got dumb NATO leftists that say, oh, you can't say we're not in a proxy war. Fuck out of here. Anyway, let's continue.
To blink. He is going to lose. He is going to lose on the battlefield. And he knows that the only chance he has to survive this invasion is get the American Congress and Western powers to kind of give in because they're too tired.
What we're basically told is buckle up and get out your checkbook. Of course, it's not our checkbook. And can I just say, by the way, I'm sick and tired of hearing all of these people in that room for the administration applaud Congress for being so generous. This isn't our money, for heaven's sake. It's not our. We're not being generous.
God damn all of you motherfuckers for making me say Josh Hawley is wrong on this issue. My senator,
Oh my
my
God.
unhinged GOP senator. Democrats are so unhinged. They are so ridiculous. They are so extreme that they're allowing this motherfucker to be right on the issue. And he has
And he looked dead ass serious too. He looked so serious. He like, mother, this ain't even our money. Why you?
Yeah, Josh Hawley dead ass has been his votes.
He's been out talking about against the war for a while now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been speaking out against the war, and goddamn you guys for making me ever side with. If anything, you got this should be like a dub where I wouldn't even have to say that I agree with Josh Hawley. It's like me saying that I agree with Josh Hawley that the sky is blue. There's no reason for me to say that, right? But now I have to say it because Democrats made it a thing. So,
yeah, and I would say too that comment that was it Graham made that where basically he's saying that if they blink, Putin is going to survive this war. I want to be very clear about something. Do y'all know right now? I don't know if y'all like how much I keep up with the intricacies of the war, but the generals right now are they're done. Not we don't have enough money because people don't know. Russia's been stacking up oil and gold reserves for like 10 years, almost 20 years actually, because they were anticipating this moment. They have plenty of money, plenty of weapons. And now they're just so tired of dealing with this shit that the generals from Russia are saying, fuck it, let's go into Kiev and end this motherfucker right now. Literally. Like it is taking all of the restraint of Putin to not. I don't know who's confused about this. Russia could annihilate Ukraine in an instant. They have not done so because they're trying to negotiate still, while obviously the West is disallowing the negotiations to take place, like any serious negotiations. But like, people need to understand, like y'all have gotten this weird idea that, they're like, they can't really take out Ukraine or else they would. No, they could demolish Ukraine. Like they could literally just send, if they really, really, really wanted to.
Yeah, if they really tried.
But they're trying not to displace families even more. They're trying not to hurt innocent people. They're trying to allow them they're trying to do things in a way that, even though they're at war, they're trying to exercise diplomacy while still making it clear you're not going to keep bombing the Russians in your country, and you're damn sure not about to partner with NATO and surround us with NATO influence militarily. So, but don't get it twisted. Once again, Russia could annihilate Kiev, and they're choosing not to. That's the only reason why it hasn't happened.
Yep. Yeah, so don't get it twisted. Josh Hawley, if he had his way, we would be living in a police state ran by capitalists. Like straight up feudalistic society where the people who own the most private capital controls everything. Then you have a giant government-sponsored police state that keep the poor people from protesting against the rich.
You got that now.
That's true. That's true. But if Josh Hawley had their way, essentially it'd be Missouri. We would have that to the max. So the reason I say that Josh Hawley is not our friend, right? It's just that Democrats are so unhinged. They make him or anyone who got decent common sense seem rational. So I'll play this part again. I'll let it continue, and then I'll play just a little bit of Amy Klobuchar's unhinged nonsense. Because despite how crazy Josh Hawley sounds, I'm gonna show you guys Amy Klobuchar. He sounds like a completely intellectual, rational man compared to that unhinged psychopath Amy Klobuchar on this issue. Anyway, let me play this and we move to that part.
Your checkbook. Of course, it's not our checkbook. And can I just say, by the way, I'm sick and tired of hearing all of these people in that room for the administration applaud Congress for being so generous. This isn't our money. For heaven's sake. It's not we're not being generous. It's the American people's money. And they spent $115 billion of it. And so far they have basically nothing to show for it.
It's very clear that if we were to have a government shutdown or to pass a CR with no Ukraine aid, that the effect on Ukraine would be very quick and devastating. We cannot let Putin win. Without aid, Ukraine could run the very strong risk of being defeated.
Oh, Chuck Schumer, you sweet summer child. You really think the Pentagon was going to allow a government shutdown to stop this war with Russia? But anyway, I don't want to spoil that. We get to that very soon. For a second time, I'm going to show you guys this clip because we got this psychopath. This 5 minutes.
Crystal Ball Jr. and that her sister over there. That shit's weird, bro. It's so weird.
Wasn't she like on some like far right network? I saw this video on Twitter a few weeks ago where she was on like Gateway Pundit, some far right platform, and liberals were attacking her for it. She's like, why has CNN had this person who used to be on the far right platform? And then I watched the video, it's crazy. Like she's like repeating far right Republican talking points like extremely passionately. You know, the same way like she repeats anti-Trump liberal talking points. Her ability to switch ideologies on a dime based on who's paying her, it's crazy shit. I don't know if you guys seen that old video. Actually, not that long ago, only like a few years ago. She worked at
these people are professional actors who never made it in Hollywood. That's basically what they are. Right? That's literally Adam Schiff, by the way. Like he tried to be an actor and just was a failure, and so that's what he does.
Yeah, and she's a serious psychopath. I don't know how you can do that because when you watch that video, you would think that she's a legitimate Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like you don't think like, oh damn, she's fake in that video. When you watch her in the Trump town hall, you don't think, yeah, damn, she's fake. No, her ability to just change psychologically in different political scenarios, it's situations, extreme. Anyway, let's
call psychopath, Nick. It's called psychopath.
Yeah, it's unbelievable these people to me. But let's listen to this. I don't want to get too long into this, but I just want to show you guys the mindset of the unhinged, pro-war Democrat.
With President Zelenskyy today, what was the most important thing that you heard from him?
Well, the passion, the incredible work that he is doing to protect democracy, not just in Ukraine, but across the world. And let me tell you, there were 2 standing ovations for him, Caitlin. The crowd was nearly all the senators, Democrats and Republicans were there. I did not detect that gnawing away of support. I see a Senate that passed with 86 of 100 senators voting for the defense bill. I see Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer standing together for Ukraine. And then later this afternoon at the archives where no lost symbolism there, where the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, you see President Zelenskyy declaring that Ukrainians are defending freedom and global security every day and every night. And kids are there and soldiers without legs, children without hands, and the American doctors that have fixed them, that have made their lives better, that have given them prosthetics. It was very emotional. People were crying, and I saw every bit of emotion that I saw in the past. In fact, stronger resolve, as we know China is watching right now. We know that this scrappy Ukrainian military has taken back 50% of what the superpower Russia took away from them since the invasion began.
That's a lie. And by the way, do you guys still got your lunch? Do you still got your lunch? Because that was barth-worthy right there. That was very Anyone, if you still got your lunch, props to you. Like I was struggling listening to this.
I only had some fruits today, so I'm keeping it down. The acid creeping though. The acid is creeping.
That was very hard to get through. I'm gonna let it continue because you guys heard where she's going, right? And this is a new talking point coming from Democrats, fam. Obviously the other party too, but there's still people who are stuck in 2014-15 who believe that Democrats are better than Republicans. It's the Democrats that are saying now because they realize that people are flipping on Ukraine aid. They say, no, if we don't win this war in Ukraine, we don't continue to aid, what message will that send to the Chinese? Wink, wink, white American Chinese. You guys see how they're using China to get people on board of waging war against Russia? That's how desperate they are. Let's throw some xenophobia in there. Hope we can get people on board.
But you know what? She is right. China's watching. That's not a good thing, motherfucker. Like China is watching, and you're like, okay, we see how y'all moving, but I guarantee it. Like, I don't know why they think that saber rattling at China will ever work out for anybody. That is just a non-starter. It's like saber rattling at Iran. That's like a non-starter. Don't do it.
Yeah, I think it actually gets worse. I'm gonna play just one more exchange, and then I'm gonna move on to the next part.
So I see momentum, and I see just incredible, strong spirit in President Zelensky that has guided his country through this.
And we see
Oh my
much
God.
more support for Ukraine from the Senate. I mean, you saw Senator McConnell today walking with Senator Schumer and
Yeah, I know
President
this is hard to get
Zelensky.
you, CJ.
But on the House side, I mean, it's a different story. Speaker Kevin McCarthy, you know, he avoided being seen in public with Zelensky. We did see these photos of them
So now this is her asking Amy Klobuchar about this divide that we were just talking about, and some more I'm gonna show you here soon. Now this is her response here.
together in private. But, you know, he's not committing to putting more aid for Ukraine up for a vote in the House. Obviously, that would, you know, how the Senate would deal with that is an open question. Do you think that Congress is going to be able to get another aid package for Ukraine passed?
I do. I think you know that, as you just discussed on your panel there, that Speaker McCarthy has a lot going on. And he did say after the meeting, I heard the reports that he heard some good things there. And you've got a number of Republicans over in the House standing with Ukraine. Yes, you have some people, but I would like to ask them to their faces, what do you think China's going to think if we withdraw? What are our allies going to think as they are stepping up aid? Countries like
What about the Chinese?
Norway, pledging billions and billions of dollars. This America leads, and America stands with their friends and their allies. That is
Ukraine is not NATO. Ukraine is not our ally. There's no geopolitical significance to this war other than to increase military industrial complex profits. Never extending reaching NATO. But this is unhinged garbage. I'll let it continue.
That's what this is about.
Crazy.
And to see this juxtaposed with Tommy Tuberville holding up hundreds and hundreds of military nominations as their families sit in limbo, it does make me wonder, whose side are you on here? And I can tell you that Democratic leadership is firmly on the side of our military, of our soldiers, and of democracy for America and across the world.
But she hit you with the World War II. Whose side are you on? Shit. Oh.
Yeah, and let me play a video to counter this, because what she's speaking here, Nick and Nico, what she's speaking is talking about is so much democracy going on in
is that the Rand Paul video?
Yeah, it's a 30-second video.
I have it right here. Yeah, CJ, you're reading my mind. That's literally next.
Counter, like, what are you talking about? Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
CJ, that's perfect. We this is why this shit works, because we on the same fucking page. This is literally the next thing in my notes. Watch this. Look at this, because this is what I'm leaning to. This is the talking point of Klobuchar, and I'm sure this is what you lean to, CJ. This is literally
yes.
Now this is
the same one.
Rand Paul's response to the Democratic Party talking point.
That's it.
I knew we was on the same page. This is literally the next video, so I'm gonna get to it now. This is let's hear what Rand Paul had to say and why she
could approve this. There's also this incredible story about an American journalist, Gonzalo Lira. He's reportedly right now in prison in Ukraine on allegations of spreading Russian propaganda. I don't understand this, that Joe Biden could approve $113 billion of money to Ukraine, and yet he has not tried to get this American journalist out of prison there. How is that possible?
It's even worse than that, Maria. They've canceled the elections. What kind of democracy has no election? So next year, Zelensky said he's not going to have an election because it would be inconvenient during the war and would be expensive. Well, the thing is, if you don't have elections, why in the world would we be supporting a country that's not a democracy? They've banned the political parties. They've invaded. They've arrested priests. So, no, it isn't a democracy. It's a corrupt regime. And are the Russians any better? No, the Russians are worse. But at the same time, we don't always have to pick.
They literally have elections.
But the ultimate reason I'm against this is we don't have the money. And when we borrow more money, it leads to more inflation, leads to more likelihood of recession in our country. And so we just can't keep doing it.
So
Can I say something that I think that we all probably want to what happened to we can't have money to do we won't hold elections unless we get more money, and they just got more money yesterday. So I'm confused. So now the goalpost is moved again. Now it's too expensive to hold elections, and so you got what you want now. So basically, I mean, that was never about. That was just the next excuse that Democrats and Republicans can use Why? Because obviously the Ukraine war, most people don't support it. So it was another excuse. Oh, well, we're supporting them to preserve democracy there, right? And therefore, we obviously have to fund them in order to make sure that democracy can continue. And then Zelensky's like, yeah, man, fuck that democracy, bro. We just want some money. And hope that no one peeps game like he just took a bunch of money. By the way, on the cusp of government shutdown that somehow the Ukraine is exempt from. So, like, what the hell? What just happened? And also, that's a lie. For everybody who's curious, what Rand Paul said, most of it's true. But no, Russia's not worse. Russia has a super legit democracy, actually. They have very healthy elections. The only time they do not have healthy elections is whenever they inevitably a Western propagandist that's paid to disrupt the process comes in and tries to, but ultimately it just gets shut down because, like, for better or for worse, there are people obviously Putin has an opposition in his own country. He's a president, but like at the end of the day, they choose him. And there's audits, I know that's a foreign word, a foreign concept in the US, but they have audits in Russia. They have a Congress, they have a legislature in Russia. They have opposition parties in Russia. All things that currently don't exist in Ukraine. Coincidentally enough. So,
and there's a lot of lies that we didn't get to, but I'm gonna show you guys this one real quick. I was trying to find the version of this graph without the meme, but unfortunately, we gotta take it with the meme. I didn't save it, unfortunately, but this is how much they gained in the Ukraine counteroffensive. So I've heard them say this multiple times, so I guess they're gonna just run with this lie and hope they don't get fact checked. Where they're like, Ukraine took 50% of the gains made by Russia. That is 100% a lie. There have been multiple liberals on Twitter that already been ratioed. I've seen that been keep saying this. I don't know, there's like a bad memo that went out. That is not true. This counteroffensive has been a massive failure. I wish I could find a graph without a meme, but I think you gotta get the point of it.
I actually think Washington Post posted that. Oh, I covered a story. That's what it was. I covered a story like 2 weeks ago that was literally talking about how like U.S. officials were lamenting the fact that the counteroffensive has not been successful. Like the mainstream media was reporting it wasn't successful.
Yeah. Damn, I can't believe what the fuck that graph did. I saw it not too long ago. But last thing I'll share on this, let me check. And then we got the Pentagon is a Zemp story. Then I'll pass to UCJ, and I'll stay for maybe another 2 segments or so. This is JD Vance, who's another member of the U.S. Senate. I think he beat Tim Ryan not too long ago, and now he's the right-wing U.S. senator.
Yeah,
and it's better to have JD Vance there than Tim Ryan, who's an unhinged psychopath who made the passionate argument that we should stay in Afghanistan. That's who Tim Ryan was. Now there's JD Vance there. You understand they got the same economic trickle-down Reaganomic bullshit, right? But at least now we got JD Vance calling out the Ukraine war instead of Tim Ryan, who wanted to still go in war with Afghanistan. So here's JD Vance. Yesterday at a classified briefing over Ukraine, it became clear that America is being asked to fund an indefinite conflict with the limited resources. Enough is enough to these and future requests. My colleagues and I say no. So Rand Paul, JD Vance, this growing number of Republicans, not a lot, obviously, Amy Klobuchar is correct in some sense that the majority of the Republican Party supports it. But CJ, Nico, do you know how much that matters? Absolutely none. If you have a few senators that block the fucking funding bill. It doesn't matter if you have 90% of the Republicans on board. You just need JD Vance and Rand Paul, fam. So all the other shit don't matter. But
and y'all know Rand Paul love his 45 minutes of spotlight he get once every 2 years. He love that shit. He don't ride that train.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a libertarian. I'm a fiscal conservative, right? That motherfucker can get that same speech.
Yeah, and Rand Paul, I gotta look at his voting record because I swear, I don't know on top of my head, but I would guess he has not been that consistent on the Ukraine thing.
He's been like almost like 50-50. Like most times, there's a lot of times where he won't vote for the spending bill the first time, like the military budget the first time, then he'll go back and do it the second time after like they remove. But if it's a clear waste of money, a lot of the times he will vote against it. Like, to be honest.
So you had these 2 Republican senators, and Chuck Schumer's and Democrats, they were saying, "Oh my God, the Republicans, they're gonna shut down government," and they were like, and there's a bunch of anti-imperialists on Twitter like, "Oh my God, yes, Rand Paul, we don't like that motherfucker, but hell yeah, we cheering for you. Shut down this motherfucker in Ukraine government." And then Pentagon was like, "You sweet summer children, you guys think that we're gonna allow some government shutdown to end our cash cow?" So yeah, the Pentagon exempts Ukraine operation from potential government shutdown. CJ, I don't know if you remember this, but it was months ago, very long time ago. Remember the last time they had the government shutdown drama? And I explained to you guys how that political drama is bullshit. No, oh no, the government shut down. Oh my God, we gotta do something. Oh no, we gotta cut benefits to the poor. No, we can't cut benefits for the poor. No, man, we have to. Oh, I guess we have to. We gotta cut benefits for the poor. Damn, government not shut down now. Unfortunately, we gotta cut benefits for the poor. There's nothing that we can do. That's how it always goes. It always go that way, right? They do political theater to justify the austerity economics that they're gonna implement. The result is always gonna be the same. They just gotta do the theater. They gotta do the dance. So you guys think there's some
both sides. Hey, bro, government shutdown is code for, hey, y'all get y'all speech writers together, man. It's about that time of the year. We got to put on this. People, it happened in 2013. I think that was 2018. I think was the longest. No, was it 2018 or 2013? With 34 days, was that 2018? I think that might have been 2018. But that was over the wall and over the Dreamers Act. I don't know if y'all remember that. Yeah, like it was the same song and dance, but in reality, it had nothing to do with either, if that makes sense. Like they were saying it was about the Dreamers Act, they were saying it was about Trump's wall, but it was never really about either of those things. It was midterms. That's what it was about.
How is this even constitutional? I don't. So apparently, and this is what I read up on, Pentagon. They over accounted for billions of dollars in their budgeting, so they used the extra money that they gave themselves to do this. Like, how is this even legal? This is another example how laws and shit, they're not really real. The ruling class do what they want.
They learn how to audit all of a sudden. They learn how to audit themselves finally. That's crazy. So they went from when they were audited by the government, like they were like trillions of dollars in debt. Like y'all don't got no extra fucking money. You can't have a Bank of America account with negative $100 and then a Chase account with 25 in it and be like, damn, I just came up $25. Like that's not how that shit works.
I think you know how they never pass audits. I think they have secret stashes of money like this everywhere that they can just magically. Because they have to have a contingency plan for if somebody really comes into power or enough people come into power to where they're voting against their weapons plans. They got to have a contingency plan for that, and that's this. They got money all over the places, man. We don't know, like, where'd this come from? But magically, you can't tell us, you can't send us the rest of our money, the $2,000 checks you owe us.
Oh man,
but you can find money for this.
Right, CJ, why you bring it up?
In the cushions, go ahead.
You bring it up, CJ?
Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had to pull it up again. Listen to this nonsense, right? And this is how they justify funding the Ukraine despite the government shutdown. So the $325 million is being pulled from funds that became available after the Pentagon said it's overvalued previous arms shipments to Ukraine, an accounting error that freed up an additional $6.2 billion. So what they say is we overvalued the amount of money that we sent them, so they gave us enough money so we can send more. You guys see how the rules mean fucking nothing?
Yeah. So really quick. Overvalued.
We were going to overcharge you for this, but we're just going to charge you regular price now so we can include some more stuff.
So they already spent but it sounds like they already spent the money.
Oh God.
So I guess but basically what they're saying is like, oh, we had already spent the money the last time, so this time we were expecting to spend the same, but they said, nah, we'll give you a discount this time. Is that what the fuck just happened?
Pretty much.
So instead of going to get y'all money back from these defense contractors who obviously do work in the Pentagon, like y'all gonna give them more money? How do you overvalue something? The Pentagon's confusing because how do you overvalue something? You working with these companies non-stop, bro. Non-stop. And you ain't do a little quick search. Hey man, let me get this, like give me numbers on. There are people that are dedicated to crunching these numbers, and y'all fucked up and
they made a mistake.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
If you believe that you're the biggest rube out there, here's Justin Amash. Even if Congress doesn't appropriate money, the Pentagon will keep funding Ukraine. As I said, we do not have a representative government. We have not had one in a while. We had an oligarchy with the ornamentation of a representative government. Absolutely well said, Justin. Once again, the only bone I have to pick with libertarians. I'm sorry, I can't help but be an asshole. But what do you think is the end result of unchecked capitalism? The people who have capital become more powerful than government agency and government themselves. Hence, government become captured, and then the government doesn't work for people no more. That's the end result of late-stage capitalism. But anyway, that's a great statement. I don't want to pick a fight. That's a good statement.
Unchecked capitalism. I feel like I should say that because I don't describe myself as a communist or a socialist, so I still think it's important for me. There's no such thing as unchecked capitalism. There's only capitalism. This is the way it's always been. I need y'all to understand that. Stop with this is crony capitalism. No, you literally cannot give me another example in history where capitalism did not function this way. And therefore, it is the norm, not the exception. It's time to accept that and move on. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I get that much.
Yeah, well said, Nico. This is the last video I have, and I'll pass it to CJ.
I have a couple of videos for this segment too. Go ahead.
Yeah. But if you wonder why we're in Ukraine right now, and if you think we're in Ukraine because we care about the Ukrainian people, like sweet summer children, like Marianne Williamson, AOC, Bernie Sanders, they think we are there because we're here to protect Ukrainians. Well, that's the cover. They don't believe that. That's what they got to tell people.
No, Marianne believes it. Marianne definitely believes it.
Yeah, I buy that. I said that. I think Marianne, it probably is airheaded enough. I think she has good intentions on some issues. So she's airheaded enough where she's like, maybe we do care about Ukraine. I don't know, man. Because I have a hard time giving benefit of doubt. Maybe
we should go back to basically send troops back to Afghan because of the women that were going through whatever they're dealing with there. And I'm like, unfortunately, the reality is that's not a U.S. problem. Like,
yeah, but
also the people that are in power that are causing those problems are only in power because we originally went there to put them in power. So there's that. So like, we don't make things better. We only make things worse if we go there. So I do have something to say about this situation with the Pentagon after you're done, Nick. I do want to talk about that because there's some stuff that people should know.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this video and I'll pass to you, Nico. I think that this will add to that. If you guys wonder why the Pentagon behaves the way they do, the reason why we got endless war, she's going to do this, but I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to hear what she says.
Look at the history of military innovation. If it's done well, it is a campaign of learning, right? As capabilities shift, as your doctrine shifts, as your personnel and their understanding of how to use that technology shifts, that's all an incredibly dynamic thing. And we saw with the railroad rifle and the telegraph, 150 years ago, and we're seeing it with AI today, right? This idea of data at scale. And in particular, there are things you will learn when you are not in the throes of a conflict, say through war games or tabletop exercises. And then there are other things that one inevitably will learn when there is a war fight going on. I mean, we saw this when our forces were in Iraq and Afghanistan, just how much innovation was happening because they were able to take certain things, put them out on the battlefield and figure out how to make certain shifts and then apply them. And that kind of cycle is so critical. So obviously, Ukraine is a laboratory of learning for military innovation. I think
Ukraine is a laboratory of military learning and information. They're treating Ukraine as their backyard. And I know you guys want to chime in, so I'll pass to you guys. But you guys saw how she said, this is just like Iraq and just like Afghanistan. This is an opportunity for us to have military innovation and test these weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't this shocking? Do you guys think that anyone else is more evil?
But she can't say it. But what it really is, because I don't remember who it was, but they basically confirmed it. What they're trying to see is if shit happened to pop off, how prepared is Russia to fuck us up? Like, are we ready for what Russia got? And I actually believe that Russia hasn't even gotten to its bag yet, if I'm being completely honest.
Because in my position on this, if you guys think that we're gonna win a war with Russia and China, you out of your fucking mind. We couldn't beat fucking guerrilla fighters in Afghanistan and Korea.
Yeah, we train, bro. We train the fighters in Afghanistan. And they're like beating us with our own IEDs.
People don't understand. Our military is fucking ass. Our military does one thing. It literally causes mass death and destruction. our military is not a capable fighting force that is able to accomplish specific geopolitical objectives. They go to Iraq and they kill a lot of people. They go to Afghanistan, they kill a lot of people. That's what they do. They're not a trained fighting force. The Chinese Navy shits on our Navy, fam. If we go to war, we're going to get dismantled.
So they're so people think like the special forces, for example, wow, because like the death toll for special forces is extremely low. Yeah, they're well trained. That's true. And I used to be on Fort Bragg. My uncle was special forces. I have friends, but like I'm well aware of how good and well trained special forces are. But what y'all gotta realize is every time these motherfuckers go in to go kill somebody really important, we got the intel in advance. Do you know why? Because 9 times out of 10, they're killing somebody that we put in power. Of course, they have the intel. Of course, they know exactly where to strike, what time to strike, the travel schedule, all that, because we are the ones who put like what special forces like with Noriega, for example. What special forces ends up doing is they cross people off the list that are no longer of use to us. So it's not even like they're exceptionally talented at intelligence gathering and then taking action. It's just that they have an advantage. But I promise you, bro, I was in the military, dog. I promise you, if it popped off of Russia, they don't do play military, dog. Like they don't play. It's different for Russia. It's different for Iran. That shit is serious. The general that they assassinated, Soleimani, who we assassinated, is known as a terrorist killer. Like he was one who basically cleansed Iraq of terrorism when he was alive. These people don't play about it, and if they want to keep testing, like they keep testing these waters,
they're gonna be in trouble. But listen,
you know, hey, bro, you know how it goes. Somebody keep pushing you, CJ. All right, man. Okay. But that motherfucker that's been sitting there quiet, when he cracked that smile, and Putin and Xi Jinping they're cracking that smile because they're waiting for you to give them just the right level of ammunition to pop off. And we're in a transition of power, by the way, which would be the perfect time to pop off. So we just need the United States to chill. They just need to chill the fuck out.
The war-torn. So let's same segment, but here's more on the funding of Ukraine and the issue that they're having. So we're gonna move the same Ukraine conversation. We've been hitting different aspects of the Ukraine conversation. We've been kind of talking about funding, but let's kind of zero in on it. And by zeroing in on it, who do we have come to town? Not Santa Claus, but we have the next best thing. They call him Zelenskyy. He came to town for trying to get some gifts. Usually Santa Claus comes bearing gifts, but he was coming looking for some money gifts, looking for some cash, some straight dough. And all of his friends, Nico and Nick, all of his friends came out. All of his big friends came out in support on all of the networks. Even you're talking about the Jay-Z and Beyonce of the establishment. Anthony Blinken showing up on Morning Joe is kind of a big deal, big enough for even Alan Greenspan's wife, you know her as Andrea Mitchell, to show up specifically for this interview too. So they even she had to wake up too. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is exactly why we do propaganda report on Morning Joe. We told you guys, Morning Joe is where you go to hear the talking points of the establishment. When you want to know what the political direction the establishment is going, you go to Morning Joe. They get all the big gets. And
you'll see it repeated. Remember whenever Morning Joe started questioning Joe Biden's age? Yep. And then what do you start seeing after that?
Yep.
All the rest of the show started doing the same thing.
Yeah, well said, CJ. We can continue.
All right, so I queued it up right in the beginning. We're not going to watch all of it, but we're just going to watch the points that zero in on Ukraine funny. This first segment that we're going to watch is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's watch. I'm sorry, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's watch.
Foreign country will take his message to Washington to meet with President Joe Biden and members of Congress. Let's bring in United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Also joining the table, NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent and host of Andrea Mitchell Reports.
This is a big day.
Andrea Mitchell is with us as well.
Mr. Secretary, great to have you with us. So where do we stand right now in terms of Washington supporting Kyiv? Do you think you still have enough Republicans in the House and Senate to keep this country united in its pushback against Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion.
Joe, first,
So
every single time I hear that shit, bro. Every
we
single
all
time.
had something to say at the same time.
Like we ain't all lived through Iraq, like and Afghanistan for that matter. Like
But go ahead. No, let me chime in right here. What I was gonna say, and then I'll pass to both of you if you had something to say here. What I was gonna say is you're talking now. We've said this. I want to reiterate it. Morning Joe, the donors watch Morning Joe. Like the people who really the movers and shakers, the deep state. This is the show that they watch is Morning Joe. This is why even for Antony Blinken, this nigga, he gets in front of diplomats all over the world. Doesn't he look nervous right here? He's like, oh man, he's like, man, I got a lot of selling to do right here. He's like, hey, Republicans ain't for this shit. I got some serious selling to do.
And he's looking for his next contracting job in the civilian world. You know that he looking for that too, because he might not.
Yeah, that's true.
The way things are looking, he might not be Secretary Blinken. He might be Mr. Blinken in a couple years. So he auditioned it.
That's a great point, CJ, because Blinken knows they are watching. So this is a big moment. That's why he had this.
Like lights, camera, action. So, let's see how he does. Go ahead, Nick. Then I'll play.
Yeah, and you guys see how he says Putin's illegal invasion as opposed to illegal invasion. And remember when Anderson Cooper was pressed on this, and he said, when he was asked about what about the invasion of Iraq, he like the invasion of Iraq, they're not the same as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, even though millions of dead Iraqis. Yeah, so you got
involved. We had to cross the ocean. What you mean?
It's a deeply disturbing ideology that our wars are good. The lives of these Ukrainians are somehow way more valuable than lives of Iraqi kids, Iranian kids, and many others. But anyway, we can continue.
First, great to see you, Mika. Great to see you, and really great to be here this morning. Look, the hallmark of this effort to support Ukraine has been bipartisan support, and we've seen that from day one. Conversations I've had with leaders in Congress, including Republican leaders in recent days, shows that support remains strong.
I'm going to say this. Ask yourself, do you think he's talking to Morning Joe, or do you think he's talking to a larger audience of donors? Look at who he's talking to, how he's phrasing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as President Zelenskyy has an opportunity to come to Washington to make his case directly to folks in Congress, I think you'll see that support continue to be manifested. And it is so vital that we continue to back the Ukrainians the way we have. And by the way, not just us, we have dozens of other countries doing the same thing. The stakes are extraordinarily high.
Say the magic word.
We're here in the
NATO. NATO. He can't say it. We have dozens of other countries. He had to say it because he's about to say we have the rest of NATO. Yeah. Well,
I forget it because it's so long ago. This place came together.
That's not me. That's the thing is for whatever reason.
Also, I think it's important to say that throughout all these conversations regarding Ukraine,
and the basic idea was countries need to come together.
Clear that they are going out of their way to not mention NATO. They go out of their way to not mention it. So there's a reason for that, because they don't want people to associate NATO with this war because it's NATO's war.
Unprovoked invasion. That's the term they want you to memorize.
Illegal invasion.
Together, agree on certain rules, how they're going to operate and how they're going to relate to each other to make sure we don't have another world war. And a big part of that was saying, and it's right there in the UN Charter, that you've got to respect another country's sovereignty. It's territorial. You can't just go in, country.
Oh shit! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my! Oh sweet baby!
Bro, see, I couldn't be at that table. If I'm at that table, I get fired that day. I would start laughing.
Bro, I would have got. Don't let me be behind the camera. I'm like, I would have.
What did you say? You'd be like, oh my mic, mic check. The mics aren't working. I think he just said he is. Mics aren't working.
Here's all my stuff.
All right, let's try to get through past that part.
My bad, bro.
Hey, this is Comedy Central. That's the funniest shit I ever
heard. Bro, it reads like a Comedy Central skit, bro. What?
All right.
From the map, exactly what Putin has tried to do and failed to do in Ukraine. If we allow that to go forward with impunity, if we allow Putin to get away with it, then it is open season for any would-be aggressor anywhere in the world. They're all watching. And they're saying, if he can do it, I can do it. That's a world full of conflict. That's a world full of hurt. It's a world we don't want to be in. So I think the stakes are clear. The interest is clear. And then, of course, there's a profound human dimension that I know touches lots of Americans.
And that was just the first point, the point about
I want
the
you guys
UN
to
Charter
reconcile
and
this.
sovereignty that you made.
TJ, so this is the argument they use. They're to tell people, to get people to care about the Ukraine war. And I know you guys seen it as well, Nico and CJ. They said, we don't stop Russia here, it will lead to never-ending war, because then they will wage war against Europe, then they will wage war against the United States. But didn't y'all just say that Russia was losing to Ukraine? So let me get this right. Russia has this pathetic, and now this is according to Antony Blinken, the United States propaganda machine. According to the United States propaganda machine, the Russian military has been exposed as weak and ineffective. They can't even beat Ukraine, but somehow they also a giant threat that can destroy Europe and the United States. You guys see the propaganda technique of our enemy is extremely weak, but at the same time, all powerful and unstoppable.
You know what's even more interesting? Y'all got 12 countries giving weapons and arms and money to one country, and Russia is like this with one hand tied behind their back. Like, yeah, 12 billion gone, 300 million gone. So go, y'all want some more money? Go ahead, send us some more money. Send us some more, please. Like,
and isn't the best way?
Y'all have 12 countries funneling. Don't forget about the International Legion, because Ukraine has international soldiers that are actually from NATO powers. They just hide behind that name so that they don't actually have to report the deaths of the people who are the veterans from other countries. But like, they have other fighters from other nations in that country as well, along with billions of dollars from multiple nations. And Russia's like, yeah, we're just kind of stringing them along till they get tired of this shit, because we're not gonna get tired of it. We're fine. We're cool.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to say before we get back to the video, because this must be said, because this is the leading talking point right now, fam. The leading one. That's why I had to pause it here. If you want to stop never-ending war and aggressive Russia, you negotiate with them and create a buffer state out of Ukraine like you had in the status quo for the last few decades. So what he's not telling people is that this is a war in order to stabilize NATO encroachment. It's not a defensive war. So if
also,
you
literally,
went
Russia's
in
never invaded
war,
another country ever, if in my estimation, like not ever in the last, since actually post-Bolshevik Revolution and even a little bit before that, Russia never invaded another nation in like post-USSR. So I don't understand where that point's coming, because they want people to believe that's something that's constantly percolating in the mind of Putin, when that's never been the case. And I feel like I shouldn't have to say this because it's obvious, but holy shit, does he think that his audience is either so dumb or so young that they weren't around for the war in Iraq? He's like, unless he's like, you guys didn't like when we invaded Iraq and in Libya and Afghanistan and all those countries that we invaded, right? Y'all didn't like that. So of course you agree that we shouldn't allow Russia to do that. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's so bad, bro.
In your case before the Security Council yesterday, you added that Russia is committing war crimes, engaging in nuclear saber rattling, weaponizing hunger, now cooperating with North Korea in the war effort.
Weaponizing hunger.
It's a case you've made many times over the last year and a half. Is it your sense that the people who need to hear that message,
I'm not gonna stop it. There's just so many lies
are
to
they
look
willing
at
to
once.
do anything about it?
So much.
Well, I think it's really
I'll let
important
you
that we
plan.
keep coming back, not just to the strong interest that we have in supporting Ukraine with all these other countries, but also the human dimension, because it's easy from so far away or in a conference room to lose sight of that. We're talking big policy issues. I was just in Ukraine for the 4th time since the Russian aggression, and Andrea's been there so many times as well. We went to a small town, Yehidny. It's about 2.5 hours drive outside of Kyiv, and went there. And when the Russians came in 18 months ago, they took over this town. They herded up all of the residents, just a few hundred people. They took them to the schoolhouse. They put them in a basement unfit for human habitation. They had their command post on the ground floor, and they basically put people there as human shields. And it was elderly people, it was women,
what?
It was children.
Pause that shit. So hold up. So they took them into a basement that supposedly isn't good, good for human living conditions, which is a different thing. But how the fuck do you use somebody as human shield when they're in the basement? I don't think militarily or strategically speaking, that's how human shields work. Like that is a really piss poor shield if the shield's not even in front of bullets.
So what they've been doing in Ukraine is essentially projecting their war crimes. They talk about stuff that they did in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they said Russia is doing that. Like they will say stuff like Russia is using sexual violence against the Ukrainian population. Oh, you mean the thing the United States soldiers did in Afghanistan and Iraq? Absolutely. Don't make up shit that you guys did and put it on Russia.
Hey, nuclear saber rattling, like we didn't just see headlines where they like, yeah, we're about to send some nuclear tipped uranium.
Yes. Biden sent nuclear submarines to fucking Australia and South Korea. But anyway,
but like we literally there were headlines of nuclear tipped uranium. It's like, does he not read the news before he goes on the news, or he just really, really hoping him? It's like y'all said. Morning Joe's a propaganda machine. That's where everybody. So his job right now is to say the lie so that everyone else repeats it, so that no one goes back and verifies that it's a lie. Because if everyone's agreeing on mainstream media in the minds of the average person, then it must be true.
Vladimir Putin has shown no interest in actually coming up with a meaningful diplomatic settlement.
Oh my.
Mr. Secretary, I was at an event last night where President Zelenskyy was awarded and gave a speech, and it's so compelling in person. Are you counting on him in person to Congress? Because a new letter today has enough House and Senate members to block the aid, and they're still saying they're going to refuse.
I think we all know, we've all heard him many times. President Zelenskyy is incredibly compelling. He's a terrific communicator.
Which Zelenskyy are they seeing? Because the one they tried it out, I don't know what they talking about. He is not compelling. You talking about the one with the Clint Eastwood voice, who's always in military costume? You talking about like he can't wear a suit? How many times he's been?
The one that
they
had
y'all can't put him in a suit.
Ukrainian media had to edit the crowd, so that it looked like there were more people. Remember, like, did y'all see that post? They had to edit the crowd so it looked like there were more people. I saw that. We should play that. Up. Yeah, but they fucked up because Zelenskyy is in the crowd of people that they edited during his speech. Yeah.
We got play that.
Go ahead, Nick.
We definitely got to play that video. And do you guys know that Biden met with Zelenskyy, and there were so many leaks and inside reporting that Biden hated the motherfucker? Like they had this infamous first meeting where Biden was like, "Man, fuck this dude is a fucking."
But that makes sense though. Zelenskyy tried to work with Trump. Like this is before the impeachment. He tried to work with Trump to expose Joe Biden's entire like corruption scandal with him and Hunter Biden and Burisma and Tony Podesta, like all that stuff. John Podesta, excuse me. Like all that shit that happened. Zelenskyy was trying before Biden became president, before he even announced, he was trying to clear those people out because he knew it was only a matter of time that if a Democrat takes back over, he knew what time it was. Zelenskyy never liked Biden, and Biden never liked Zelenskyy because Zelenskyy campaigned on getting all the corruption out of Ukraine that Biden had helped put into place. And so that's what I was going to ask. He's Antony Blinken, like, oh, I've been to Ukraine 4 times. How many times Biden been?
Yeah, let's continue.
Interesting.
Right here.
And other countries can really get behind. And that means basically getting to a point where Ukraine is standing on its own 2 feet, militarily, economically, democratically.
They're not going to happen.
Got 30 countries working on that right now.
Mr. Secretary, there seems to be kind of 2 conversations happening in New York this week.
It's our goal for Ukraine to get on its feet economically. No, it's not. Guys, you know who owns Ukraine now? BlackRock. Ukraine,
like everything else,
is going to be owned by the West because of these loans, fam. So that's a lie. But I'll let it continue because there's so much.
We're hoping that
let's play a little bit more.
I'll keep it short. I can debunk everything he says. So let's continue.
Week with the conversation we're having around the table at the moment, which is about Ukraine, but a lot of countries from what you might call the global south saying, hold on a second, this is a priority that is led by America and European countries, but we're actually much more focused on issues like climate change and the inequity around climate change and the degree to which we're suffering. How much are you trying to reach out to those countries, not just on Ukraine, but say, listen, we do hear you, and the expansion of the BRICS, the G20, they have a sort of sense of momentum.
That's the only good question I ever heard from
and a feeling that perhaps America is ignoring their
Yeah, that's
The
why
only
I fast forwarded to it. Go ahead.
I'll let you continue, but that's actually a good question. That's a rare good. He gonna bullshit it, and obviously she asked it with no
Look at his
confrontation.
face.
in her
Look at his
voice.
face. Look at
Right.
his face.
That's a good question.
Did you just
Let's
ask me
continue.
that? Did you just ask me that?
No, because
He
to your point, Nico, and I said this in another segment, Nick. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but this particular person, this lady from the UK, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but she does this a lot where she'll insert a question. I'm not sure she knows that's not really a good propaganda question to ask.
Yes,
And it could be
yes.
a cultural thing that she's not
Yeah.
getting. And I notice every now and then she'll do that. And this is another one. But let's get
Nico,
back to the
that's
video
funny.
because we
You're like,
got
what did you
8
ask
minutes
me?
left in the
Like
stream.
climate change and the inequity around climate change and the degree to which we're suffering. How much are you trying to reach out to those countries, not just on Ukraine, but say, listen, we do hear you. And the expansion of the BRICS, the G20, they have a sort of sense of momentum about them and a
Do you
feeling
ask
that
me
perhaps
that?
America is ignoring their agendas.
So, Cuddy, I think if you had an opportunity to listen to the president speak to this, to the General Assembly, 2/3, 3/4 of his speech was exactly on those issues, the issues directly of concern to people around the globe. And he made the case
Doesn't
that
answer the question.
we need, as an international community, to focus on them. He made the
He did
case
not
that
get
the
that
United
question
States
before.
is by far the leading contributor to all of these efforts, whether it's on climate, whether it's on food security, whether it's on building better infrastructure.
I gotta let
building
it play, but he is
in the right way,
lying.
whether it's dealing with global health, all of the issues that people care about
It's
around
tough.
the world, we are the number one provider. And it's a false choice to say it's
Yeah,
either
we
Ukraine.
are. He is right, guys.
global
We
agenda.
are the number one provider
We
of
have to do
all the
both things.
problems.
We are
He's
doing both. And
absolutely
I think what I
right.
heard after the president spoke, just talking to a lot of my counterparts from around the world, was deep appreciation for the focus that he brought to these issues and appreciation for the fact that the United States is leading on them.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned a few
Of
moments
course,
ago.
he doesn't answer the question.
Yeah,
And we got to cut it there and just get final thoughts because I got a hard out in like 8 minutes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
go
we
ahead,
go
Nick.
through.
You had a lot to say. I know you wanted to chime in a lot on that particular question. Go ahead, sir.
There's so much to say because the question he's talking about Lula, by the way, because Lula has been one of the close U.S. partners that have been very critical of the U.S. war. And Lula, he get a lot of criticism for this, but he still maintained a statesman-like approach to the U.S. where he still want to have a good friendship with them because he's part of the hemisphere of the largest superpower. So he just had a meeting with Biden not too long ago where Biden famously forgot to shake his hand. But Lula's been a big critic of this. The majority of the world population is against the Ukraine war. So Caddy K accidentally asked a good question where he like, what's your response to this? You keep saying that the world is united behind Putin, but that's not the case. Look at BRICS. BRICS is expanding. You have South Africa. You have many countries that call out the ICC in favor of Putin. So this is not true. And Blinken, because that's such a checkmate, he doesn't answer the question, which is essentially wave the white flag because there's no legitimate answer to this. You guys are waging a losing campaign, not only on the battlefield, but in terms of PR, in terms of who winning the PR battle. I covered this months and months ago where they had a poll that was dismayed over the fact that Chinese propaganda and Russian propaganda was more influential than United States propaganda because most of the world sees through the United States lie. They live through the bullshit, and they see through it. I want to find the video. I'm looking for it now. I'll pass it to you, Nico. But I want to show the video with Zelenskyy. The video edit. I think we got. I can do
not the belly dancing one. Go ahead, Nico.
No, here it is. Here it is.
Before we break, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nico. This is the video you mentioned, Nico. This is what I want to share.
Please.
I want to do a segment on it, but I think this is gonna be a short, funny segment. And this is why you should never trust Ukrainian propaganda ever. And what our media does, they take what the Ukrainian government says, Ukrainian media says, and they print it at face value. Oh, there are war crimes over here, said the Ukrainian government, right? But anyway, this is another example how Zelenskyy is losing clout in the United States, but they can't tell that narrative in Ukraine. So I want you guys to watch this video and see if you see anything weird in the crowd.
Не розгортати цю зброю, не розповсюджувати, не допускати погрози нею, не допускати тренування для того, щоб забезпечити ядерне роззброєння. І це хороша стратегія. Але
Hold up.
Wait.
Hold up.
Who's that?
Who's that?
Bro.
I found
And he don't look entertained by his own speech. That's the crazy part.
This motherfucker is so motivated. He spawned a shadow clone. Like he was so a shadow clone. And like he caught the Holy Ghost in the way we never heard before. Himself, he became an audience. He was so moved by this.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot to unpack. First of all, when she asked that question, clearly he did not get the memo that question was going to be asked. And perhaps
definitely
I don't know if she just was like, "Oh, I'm a journalist. This is what I do." So like, I didn't think that this would be a problem. But his response when he said, "Oh, the U.S. is number one in solving these problems," bro, her face was like,
like what?
She's like, "You might forgot. I'm not fucking come here." That's a guy. Because I'm about to go. I'm about to hop right over the pond, as they always say, and enjoy some of this free health care that y'all definitely ain't got. So, like, I know you ain't talking about.
Do you think that's why, Nico? Do you think that's why she's more candid in her critique? Because you got to remember, she represents Europe that has been protesting NATO, that's receiving the brunt of these sanctions. So, do you think that's why she's able to ask a little bit more, like more substantive questions? Go ahead.
She can't ignore what she's seeing, what she's personally experiencing. It's different in America. People are protesting and are against Ukraine online, or they just don't really care. But in Europe, they feel the impacts of it more than we do, or more than people in the US do. Their gas has been high. Their oil has been higher. Their agriculture, like everything has been much higher. There is an actively negative sentiment towards the UK and the EU giving all this money to Ukraine and not doing anything to facilitate peace talks. And she's obviously fully aware, like, this BRICS situation is serious, because even though obviously most of Western Europe is a part of NATO in some way, form, or fashion, Eastern Europe has no such loyalty for the most part, and they're going to go where they feel they can be best treated. She's British people are not stupid. Like, there's some who are propagandized, but a lot of them are still at least willing to call a spade, which I feel like is one, why she asked that question. Two, why I think it wasn't a prepared question. Like, I don't think that he got it in advance, which is why his answer seems so much more unprepared and reactionary and just really uncomfortable, because he actually said multiple times, which is probably a Freudian slip. He's like, yeah, we're leading in those problems. He actually said that multiple times.
Yeah, he did.
That was ridiculous. He said healthcare, we're leading. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But fellas, I gotta jet out. I gotta go get my daughter from preschool. Yeah. She's out in like 10 minutes.
I just have literally a few super chats I'll read.
Yeah. You'll read, but I'll watch on my way there. Sorry to interrupt, but I got to get off. Get going. Everybody have a good weekend.
Yeah,
we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Our Nick and CJ show we do on Monday and Friday. That's a new schedule. Make sure you guys check out the Savvy and JB show. They had a great stream with Midwestern Marks, who I also had on for Nick at Night on Wednesday. We also had Scott Ritter on Monday, and obviously our brother Nico House, who you guys gonna see pretty often on RBN. Join us today. Got a lot of great guests signed up for next week, so make sure you check to see if you're still subscribed, like the video, help us grow, because this is a very fun stream. It's great to have all these guests come on. So I'm gonna read a few of these super chats and we get out of here. Thanks for the $5, ARJ. The U.S. respects other countries' sovereignty. That's the funniest lie. They just say stuff with a straight face. I couldn't help but laugh. I will laugh at them right in the face if I interview them when they say that.
They're actors who never made it, man. They just get the script and they read it and they perform it. That's why they're like, you don't really believe them, but it's like, damn, it's crazy that you said that with a straight face.
Yeah. I want to see if there's that famous video where Jen Psaki did the same thing. I want to find it, where she said, it's United States policy that we respect the sovereignty and democracy of the other country. Here it is. I know I can find it very quick. So I want to show you guys that this is a funny ass video, because there's a reason why Jen Psaki had the success that she had. And because she essentially did the same thing Antony Blinken just did. Look at this. Oh shit! I ain't put it up there. You got quite confused yourself. Let me start from the beginning.
Multiple people who were allegedly behind a coup that was backed by the United States. What is your response?
These latest accusations, like all previous such accusations, are ludicrous. As a matter of longstanding policy, the United States does not support political transitions by non-constitutional means. Political transitions must be democratic, constitutional, peaceful, and legal.
The U.S. has whoa.
Okay, first of
the
all,
U.S. has a long-standing practice of not promoting. What did you say? How long-standing? Is that? In particular, in South and Latin America, that is not a long-standing practice.
That video lives free in my head. Go ahead. I know you want to chime in.
Why
Go
did she
ahead.
have to read the paper word from word to say that those sentences?
Yeah.
We have a long-standing practice of not interfering in other people's governments. We believe that. I'm like, just say no. We don't interfere in regime change wars. We believe in constitutional transition of power. Like, also, the fuck does that even mean? Because, I mean, we should believe in that in our constitution, or with our transitions of power. But like, who are we to say like we believe in the constitutional transition of power? What does that even mean in the context of somebody else's government?
Yeah, I want you guys look at her body language compared to his body language. He had the body language that I don't know about you guys, but this is the same body language my dad had me when I was trying to tell him some bullshit that made no sense. He's looking at me like, nigga, I know you just not trying to look at his body language. Listen. I love the video. Let's watch it one more time.
Democratic, constitutional, peaceful, and legal.
The U.S. has whoa. The U.S. has a long-standing practice of not promoting. What did you say? How long-standing is that? In particular, in South and Latin America, that is not a long-standing practice.
He said, "How long-standing is that?" Actually, no, I'm not even let you fucking lie. You're about to do a lot of me. Go tell you.
Bro, look at his fucking body language, fam. He's like, I know you did not say what I think you just said to me. Like I'm a dumb child.
This girl in the back trying to look at her notes and shit. Like, damn, this is awkward as hell.
And I don't know this guy's name, but there's few videos I've seen this guy calling people out. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why he's allowed to do that. I don't know if he's like,
you know, I was supposed to be RT's rep back in the day at the press conferences for the Secretary of State. Like, that's what I was supposed to actually do. And for the first time, the Department of State wouldn't approve me. It left me in limbo. Like they wouldn't approve it. Like they had RT people there before, and then they were like, "This motherfucker, nah, hell no," because that definitely would have been me. That would have.
Yeah, dude, if you there, Max Blumenthal also has a few videos of him destroying people in these events. I don't know how he get let in, but man, we need people like that can expose these
bro,
things.
I was going to be in that thing like once or twice.
Dude, they will kill you, bro. They will kill you.
Just like they wouldn't have been able to get 2 sentences. I'm like, hold up, real quick. Let me talk to you. Like they would have had to shut me the fuck up.
The way he talks to her, bro. The way he talked to her just fucking perfect. This video.
I love it.
Perfect video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me move on to some super chats. Because I gotta get out here very soon, but I don't want to leave anyone out here. Thanks for the $5. Left, my friend. We teach people how to treat us. We've been allowing them to ruin our lives, and we can't get it together enough to fight back, unite the workers. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's extremely important for them to tire us out. That's why they dismantled the 40-hour work week. That's why they want your lives to be tied to your workplace and your boss. So you're tired, and you don't have energy to revolt. You got a family to fucking take care of, and you paying the bills, and you're gonna fucking have a revolution. Good luck with that. It's a very great strategy. It's very hard to overcome.
It's tired, boy. I'm tired. Shit. So
Yeah.
it's a good strategy.
So mutual aid is like the best way to counteract that, so we can alleviate the pressures of capitalism. But that's the theory, and that's what we got to move in. But they got a very sophisticated system upheld to keep us fighting against each other, implementing the culture wars while having your ass tired. And then they got news programs that tell you who died, Nico. There's some guy who got shot down the street. There's some guy who got robbed over there. Hey, be afraid of your neighbors. Oh yeah, there's another guy who got killed over there. Oh yeah, you don't want to trust your neighbors. Oh yeah, you know there's this kid over there who got kidnapped. Oh yeah, be afraid of your neighbors. So they run this news. They got people afraid of their neighbors, so they don't organize. They got you working.
That's very true.
Dude, they got us fucked up. They got us fucked, man. That's why I propose theories on how to beat this stuff. But man, they got us checkmated in an insane way.
People who live in New York can tell you, like, it's weird living in New York because like everybody doesn't know everybody in the same neighborhood. Like back in the day, everyone knew everybody on every hallway. Like even if you never talked to them, you knew their name, their kid. It's not like that anymore. Everybody's like, everybody scare everybody, bro. Like, but that's how you prevent movements from taking place.
Yep. And I try my best to reject that. I see the consequences of that in my own life. Like you see people get scared to go outside and shit. They're scared to meet people. Like I had my the mutual aid event where I was getting away school supplies. I get away with like 20 school supplies. I was going around people like, hey, you need school supplies? And people like, how you get away with all these school supplies? Like, y'all just ask people. What do you mean just ask people? You know, talk to people in front of you? I went, hey man, you think that's so crazy? Are you scared to talk to people?
You just talk to people?
I just ask people straight up. I'll be at school, like, hey, you need school supplies? You need school supplies? And that's what I did. I gave away hundreds of dollars doing that simply. We need to reconnect that community. We need to reject that. Are there bad people out there? Do bad things happen? Absolutely. That's why we need to engage the community defense and awareness of that. But we cannot allow these things to allow us to be afraid of appreciating what life really about and organizing for the better. And they really convinced a lot of people to do that. Not to go on too long of a tangent, but there's this story of this kid who got shot because he knocked on the wrong house. This black kid got shot by his white neighbor. He knocked on the wrong house, so he shot the guy. That's how fucking colonized people's minds are today. That they shoot someone because they knocked on each other's door. Do you know how destroyed your mind had to be? How colonized and how fearful you had to be? How much of a victim you propaganda you are that you're that afraid of people?
Yeah, and also if people were interacting more, do you think that would have likely happened? If people were knocking more, if people were more communicative, like if the community was more intact and communicative and talking to each other and spending time together and you don't see stuff like that in Brazil. Like nobody's, bro, they be knocking on people's doors. The mailman scream my name out. Hey Nico, you home? Like, bro, because like my neighbor, if I don't hear it, like, hey man, you got a package? Like, so nothing is ever like it's different. It's weird actually. It was uncomfortable at first. I'm like, damn, people just walk up on my door and just be wanting to talk to me about random shit. And but I'm like, damn, that actually is how my life was when I was a kid. It wasn't weird when I used to hear my door knock as a kid, but now when I hear my door knock, especially when I live like in Miami as an adult, I'm like, who the fuck knocking on my door? Like nobody called me. Like, you know,
I don't want to sound too much like a boomer, fam, but I live in the same neighborhood I grew up in right now. This field right next to I live out. We used to play football every goddamn day out there. You see kids riding bikes everywhere, and I'm not being holier than thou because my family guilty of this. My fucking niece and my cousins, they can't go anywhere. like they can't. Like we used to go outside. We used to go everywhere. We used to ride bikes in the hills. And we was gone.
Couldn't stay in the house. It was not an option. Like what you doing, bro? It's 9 o'clock. While you in the house, you already ate breakfast. Get the fuck out. Go play.
And the thing is, boomers are blaming the kids for this, but it's not the kids' fault, fam. It's the parents. Like they're not allowing the kids to play, and it's because of this fear. Like, oh man, and I get it. Like I get it. Like you're scared of shit for your kid. I understand. But the kids need to fucking explore. They need to learn what fucking life is. Like my niece is like not. And I told my mom, and I would literally tell my mom. She was like, yeah, you're not allowed to leave this little cul-de-sac that they live in. I'm like, Mom, you realize you know how far I used to go? What the fuck? New rules. But anyway, I'm going on a tangent. The whole point, the original thesis was 20 years of propaganda got people afraid of their neighbors, and who does that serve? That served the establishment. That's why I'm rejecting that now. I may get burned by this. It's possible to get burned by that. But isn't it more wholesome? Isn't it more worthwhile to live your life not being afraid of your neighbors instead of being cooped up and living a long life being a coward? That's me. That's my personal values. I don't want to live that way. But anyway, I think for $5.
And by the way, I have been burned by like embracing my neighbors. Like
I have too.
Like, that happens. Like
that's life.
It's life, and it's worked out for me and the people that I interact with more often than it's burned me. Like it's what it is.
Life. Yeah,
it never really is burning me. By the way, it like because in my life, you lose my friendship, that's on you, and eventually you'll figure that out. Like if you're consistently doing right and you're always doing the next right thing, it might seem like you getting burned by your neighbor, like you're not having. Like them treating you badly, or your friend taking advantage of, because you have neighbors and cousins. You know, people, especially if you y'all got. I don't know if you're part of a family reunion black people. You got a family reunion black family where everybody know everybody. Yeah. So that's drama. That's a whole bunch of drama. Yeah. So, but that'll happen. But if you're constantly doing the right thing, being mindful, obviously, and self-aware, and learning from your mistakes, but constantly doing the right thing, you're eventually the cream rises to the top. And
for sure,
that person can only burn so many other people before they become the one excluded, and you're the one who's uplifted as a community builder.
Absolutely. Last super chat for the day. Thanks for the $5. Name my taco. 26. I'm also a vet, and Duke Energy dumped chemical X into our water like it's the doggone Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, 2-6.
They
This is my guy
received
from
the fine,
Fayetteville.
but
This is my
they
guy
have
from
not-
Fayetteville. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a 2-6. Yeah. So yeah, but that's where I was at. Like my face like would turn white right here and all right here. And I still have to deal with the effects of it because like it just, but when I moved to Chapel Hill, the water source was different for whatever reason. I can't remember if it was like well water or something, the place I was staying at, and it started getting better. But when I went to New York, I moved there and it started disappearing. Then when I moved to Miami, it was completely gone. I'm like, bro, you don't just grow out of a skin condition. What the fuck? What happened? And then all of the news starts coming out about Duke Energy dumping toxins into the water. And like he said, all they got was a fine, and that was it. And I got a bunch of, pictures from high school and stuff like that. Bro, that was hell every day, bro. My face hurt. I almost didn't get to go into the military because they thought I had something like that was contagious.
A fine that they can afford is like that's not a law. That's not on the books. Like you got to realize we live in a lawless society. I covered this story before, and I'm blanking on the exact company, but this company paid like a $70 million fine for union busting. And then I did a calculation based on how much they made. That's like 0.06% of their profits. Like, if you can easily afford a fine, is it really against the law?
Yeah,
like,
they accumulate the money. Those fines and their mind. That's just a fee. That's a cost of doing business.
Yes,
that's what.
Yes,
literally, they have risk management consultants who literally calculate this in advance up until this is exactly how much time you have to stave off the union until you might have to meet. Like they plan out I got recruited to be one. Like that's how I know what the job is. Like they go in explicit detail and plan out every single scenario and tell you what your net will be, what your growth, like what you'll lose, what your potential projection could be if things go one way, if things go the other way. Like that, it is very calculated. Like with Big Pharma, like they were not worried about what could have, would have, should have happened with what happened during the pandemic. They don't care. They already made the money. They get fined $20 billion. They got $500 billion.
Yes, absolutely. The cost.
Yeah, here you go, $20 billion. That's fine. And they can make payments. So it's not even like they're going to get hit all in one quarter. They're not going to have to pay like everybody else. If you get a fine, you can make payments. So they're going, okay, how much? You said I have to pay $20 billion over the course of 20 years. That's fine.
Nothing for them. But anyway, Nico, thank you for sticking in with us. Always fun to have you on. Always hit me up if you feel like joining the show. You guys gonna see a lot more Nico. You've been doing great work on your channel. Great to see you back. Doing great interviews as well. Plug your channel, see where they can find you. And
so I'm still on YouTube. Just type in Nico House, NIKOHOUSE, not NICO. I know how I be doing. Nico House on YouTube. I'm actually going live later on this evening, so catch me there. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Real Nico House, on Instagram, same thing at Real Nico House, TikTok as well, rockfin.com. Definitely, if you want to become a premium subscriber there, and follow Hotspot on Twitter as well. You can see my content there. You'll see Nick's content there. We do some dope work. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback about the videos that you've been doing. Like people are rocking with it hard, bro. They like the format. They really
That's why big shout out to Hotspot for helping me put these videos together, because it's a new way to spread my message, right? And it's these streams can be long. Like it's a good way to have a shorter format to spread my message, and they also fun as hell to do. Like they're fun to do. You told me, I talked to you before. You give me some advice, like, man, just have fun with this shit. I'm like, all right, bet. I have fun with my videos. So.
Exactly, like especially because people on Twitter obviously have a shorter attention span, and there are a lot of people who, it was funny because people are like, yo, like you literally, this is a comment of somebody who's been following me forever. It was like, man, you ever consider doing like longer format videos, like podcasts or like a news show? I was like, are you being sarcastic?
You fucking with me right now,
bro? Being sarcastic. He was like, no, I'm serious, bro. Like you should do like a long form podcast. I feel like that's something you'd be really good at. I was like, yeah, I have one. But he just, well, I guess when you tweet out, because it's now YouTube and Rockfin are considered direct competitors with Twitter. So people don't see your links like they used to. Even if they're being retweeted by a lot of people, even you'll see from the larger channels, they tweet out their YouTube links and people don't really see it like that. But when you're posting directly to Twitter, especially short form videos, go to Hotspot. It's at Hotspot. When you tweet out those videos, I can cover the top, like usually, especially nowadays, it's topics that I'm going to cover again later in my show at some point. But it's like a quick rendition of the important facts to help you understand why this is an important topic that you should be looking more into. I do a lot of foreign policy, a lot of corruption. Nick does a little bit of everything, definitely exposing Democratic Party corruption, calling out the hypocrisy with the squad and Biden. And
Hotspot is dope, guys.
Yeah, and it's usually it's trending topics, but it's always information that you probably didn't, it'll always include information that you probably weren't quite aware of, or at bare minimum, it'll include an angle that you probably weren't considering before.
Yep. Yeah, Nico been killing the game. That's why I'm glad I'm able to do these now, because it's a great new format, and big shout out to Hotspot for helping me put those together as well. But anyway, thanks for joining us, Nico, today. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us for this special Friday stream. We'll be back with Nick and CJ on Monday as well. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back. Have a good one.